Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave. Hey, I'm just going to say something real quick before we get started with episode 10 of I've Known You Too Long. All right, I want to talk about React Records. It relates directly to the episode that we've got going today. If you like hardcore, if you like straight edge hardcore, if you have followed the things that Aram has done over the years, then React is probably not going to be, a new thing for you. You've probably heard of it before. But Aram is no longer doing React, but React is still going forward, and they've got a lot of good stuff going on. So if you like to keep up on what's going on with hardcore and find out about new bands, React is a perfect place to do that. They've got a lot of great new stuff coming out. They've got brand new releases. They've got the Ancient Heads, It Can't Rain Forever 7-inch. They've got Breakaway with the Face Aggression LP. They've got upcoming releases from Nuclear Age, Straight Razor, and True Identity. And you can check out some of their back catalog. They've got great stuff still available from Keep It Clear, Praise, Angel Dust, Noose. Do these sound like bands you'd want to listen to? Of course they do. Mindset, Dead Weight, so many more. There's great stuff on there. So go to itstimeToReact.com, check out the stuff they've got available now, look at what they've got coming up, talk trash on the message board, just do it up. You know how it goes. All right, we're going to get this episode started. Here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of I've Known You Too Long. This is a milestone episode, 10 episodes. We've made it. This is episode X, Roman numeral X. This is the straight edge episode. I have with me today Aram Arslanian. Aram Arslanian played guitar in the band Champion. He sings in the band Betrayed. And he's currently playing guitar in a band called True Identity. And he's got a lot more going on than that. He also ran React Records for a time. You may be aware of him already. If not, you will definitely know about him after this episode. Aram, welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Happy to be here.
Aram, I've known you too long.
Yes, it's true.
All right, so I'm going to break protocol a little bit here, and I'm going to say that we are not alone. To make sure that Michaelanne...
Would you say we're not in this alone?
Yes, I would. I would definitely say we're not in this alone.
So now, would you like to break down the walls?
I'm going to break down the walls between listener and reality.
Well, it would be very difficult for people to not see that. They can't close their eyes.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Maybe we should disengage from this.
You can't even stop doing it during your podcast.
And now you have heard the thing I was going to tell you. The door will not be opened accidentally today. There's no need for a light on the door saying recording in process. Michaelanne is starting the podcast in the room with us today.
So I actually know you're in here and doing it. So.
Yes. And there's a reason for that, because Michaelanne plays into basically into the meeting of me and Aram.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely, yes.
So Aram, the way we do this podcast, and I think you're aware of it already, is we figure out close as we can when we actually met.
Mm-hmm.
Go back from there, and then I try to figure out exactly what your deal is, how you ended up someplace where we would have met, and then we talk about things from there. And you and I will have a lot to talk about from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. 20 years of a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know the day we met.
Okay.
And I know where we met. I believe we met at the door of my apartment.
Yes.
But there's a little bit of backstory first.
Mm-hmm.
Sean O'Leary, our friend from Canada, called me up a few weeks before I met you, maybe 2 weeks before I met you. And he said, hey, my friend Aram is going to be in Seattle. You should hang out with him. And I said, I don't know this guy. What's his name? But, he's just a guy that I don't know coming to Seattle. He said, yeah, you should hang out with him. You'd like him. And I said, I'm busy. And I was busy. I was doing a whole bunch of different stuff, but it was just, I thought it was strange because I'd never really had a blind friend hangout thing suggested before.
We had a blind date.
but like, and I think I told,
Appropriate, actually.
I think I told Sean, I don't actually have time to hang out with the friends that I have. I'm too busy. Like, I'm not just going to go meet up with some dude that I don't know. That was kind of my position. And I just kind of put it out of my head. About 2 weeks later, Mike Kornitsky says, hey, can I stay at your house this weekend? I'm coming down with my friend Aram. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I think I've heard this name before, because it kind of sticks with you. Mm-hmm. Now, Kornitsky would stay at my place periodically. He would come down. And so he shows up on, I think it was a Friday afternoon, Friday evening in 1997. I think it's the spring. Do you know, is this correct? Do you agree with these times?
1996.
This will be the first argument.
Mm-hmm. I know it's not
I
true.
believe this will be the first, well, not argument, but the first clash, and we'll sort it out.
Yep.
But basically, I get introduced to you at the door, and you started being funny probably within a couple of minutes of walking into my apartment.
Like, haha funny or acting weird?
Well, those can be the same thing.
Goofy?
Like, was I joking around funny, or was I acting in a way that was strange?
Oh, joking around. Like, just being... You made an impression pretty quickly. And I'm like, okay, so this, I get it. Like, I mean, I remember thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Sean O'Leary's right, But I didn't, I wasn't 100% sure, because you were still an unknown quantity, and you make a pretty big impression right off the bat. Sometimes that's how you come into a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Michaelanne was not present at this event. Michaelanne was in Europe.
So that means both of you were wrong on when you met.
Well, I
have a good reason for thinking what my thinking is.
I have a better reason. Because it has a lot to do with when I went straight edge. I'm going to just go ahead and say I'm going to give the listeners here a preview that Michaelanne is the snuffleupagus in this situation, which will make sense later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
We'll get to that. Yeah. But I know I wasn't there for the meeting. I was not at home.
No.
Nope. And it's 1997. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, Aram says 96.
No, it's got to be summer of 97.
Oh, and I don't even think it's summer. I think it's spring.
But I would have been home still. I didn't go on that tour.
Absolutely neither. I moved to Vancouver in the summer of 1997, and I'd been straight edge for 1 year at that point. And I went straight edge in the summer of 1996.
Let me throw this out there.
Did you meet him a year before you actually started hanging out?
I believe that you may have gone to Europe for the trip in the summer of 1996.
No, I guarantee you it's 97 because I had my 21st birthday at the mosque in Paris. That was where we had my birthday dinner.
The traditional 21st birthday.
I know, it's a little odd.
Mosque.
Yes, but the traditional 21st birthday was in Europe at a mosque in Paris. It does not seem strange to me, but apparently that's strange. And so, and that summer was the summer that you met Aram. Because I kept hearing about you through there was no internet back then, right? Like everything was a phone call home like once a week.
Dear, I hope you'll forgive me, but it cannot be the summer of 1996.
It totally can't. I'm going to tell you something 100%. I know this factually.
I just didn't think it was as far back as Aram thought.
No, it's 1996. And when we met, it could have been the spring. Because I went straight edge September 1st, 1996. And that
was a point of contention between you and I.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you why I know that. Because I was still in college in Calgary. And I hadn't finished my electives that I would need to go to UBC in Vancouver. And after I met you, I lived in Calgary for a year because that's the first time I ever had email was in Calgary, and I used to email you with my signature.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to the email signature.
And the second,
that's right.
The second is I was going to put out a Screwjack record when I lived in Calgary, and I would call you from my apartment in Calgary to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, shit. This is making more sense.
Now, Michaelanne, the reason it can't be 1997 is because we started filming The Edge of Quarrel in the end of August of 1997. And Aram he is straight edge, and he is in the Rumble scene, which we filmed in the first few days of September 1997.
That's September of 97?
It is. It's September 97. The film was finished in 99. It took 2 years. And we've actually hammered this out on the podcast before. So the question becomes, I had thought that I only knew Aram for a few months prior to the beginning of the filming of Edge of Quarrel. That's why I placed it in the spring. But
because of when he was living in Calgary.
I'm not taking into account the Calgary time. I think I've just squashed that time together.
But I don't think I actually met Aram in the flesh and blood until literally the fall of 1997.
And let's also say,
is that true?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
possible
right.
then?
That's right. And so you were Snuffleupagus this whole time.
Oh God, this makes so much more sense. My God, my memory is fucking terrible.
it wasn't fall of 97 when you met, because you didn't meet him at Edge of Quarrel filming.
No, I might have. Yeah, absolutely.
But he already had a key to our place.
Not then.
You don't think?
Nope, absolutely
no, definitely not. Definitely
no way.
not.
We only moved into that apartment in the summer of 1996.
At
that filming is when I met a whole bunch of people. That's the first time I ever really truly met Pettibone. It's when I met Ben Verellen. It's when I met.
So Ben Verellen's not 96 for us. Ben Verellen's 97.
No,
he's talking about the filming of Edge of Quarrel.
Oh, that was where he met
the
him.
Rumble
Okay.
scene of Edge of Quarrel in Bellingham.
Yeah, Ben Verellen was wearing a Gorilla Biscuits t-shirt.
I believe
and
so.
It was dope. It was totally cool. And then Ryan from Nine Iron Spitfire and These Armed Snakes was wearing an original side-by-side shirt. And I was like, and
I love that you know these details.
And well, because also,
Of course he knows these details.
well, because I was like, you hadn't set it up so that everyone who was in the straight edge gang was actually straight edge. And so I was kind of trying to suss out who actually was still straight edge, because I was new to living out on the West Coast. And if I see, first of all, I'm a 40-year-old man, and if I saw someone wearing an original side-by-side shirt right now on the street, I would cross over to the side of the street and be like, yo, that's an awesome shirt. Where did you get that? Blah, 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 blah. So let alone I'm in someone's parents' like cow pasture, like fighting punks for a movie, getting like molasses poured on me as blood. If I see a dude wearing a side-by-side shirt, I'm going to assume he's straight edge, only to be crestfallen when he was like, oh no, absolutely not. I'm definitely not straight edge. And so that day I remember meeting tons of people and being equally like really psyched when, I met some really cool people, and then also kind of dismayed when there was all these like really like dope looking straight edge people that was like,
better not straight edge.
yeah. You're not.
Okay.
So you guys meet at some point in 1996, even at my house.
Okay, and it's at your apartment. Now, here's the thing. Michaelanne
I'm not there.
Michaelanne and I had moved into this apartment shortly before I met up with Aram. And Michaelanne spends a lot of time in Europe. And now she does it yearly. At the time, she was still doing it quite a bit. It wasn't for work yet, but you went over for school. You went over on a trip. And I've been that.
No, that was later.
So this is the thing that makes our meeting kind of funny. So I'm living in this apartment that has been decorated. I mean, if it had been my apartment alone, I would have thrown a futon in there. I would have maybe had like some milk crates with a TV and a VCR.
You did have all of that.
Yes, but it also had nice things that you brought. It's the civilizing influence of women. Yes. It was
the bedroom set that my mom gave me.
It had pictures on the wall, and you also had some roses hanging in the corner, pinned up to the ceiling, so they were hanging down to dry. Yeah. You had
that creepy clown doll.
Yeah, there
was two of them.
It was a porcelain mime doll.
Oh God, it was so awful.
That looked like it was from Poltergeist.
Yes, and that's why we kept it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't mine.
Of course
so
not.
The thing I didn't realize until later is that Aram has come into this apartment. He's like, we're going to go stay with my friend Dave.
And for like a year, you guys have like
living
known
on
each other.
Capitol Hill. And Mike brings you over, and you come in, and you see this apartment that does not look like a hardcore dude would live there. And there's porcelain dolls and Howard.
Was there a train spotting poster on the wall?
I don't know if that was.
Or did that come later?
But there's porcelain dolls and there's flowers hanging from the ceiling. So you developed an opinion of sorts.
Okay, so a couple things. So this is the first time I met you.
Yeah.
I walk in the door. I see a whole bunch of weird bullshit hanging everywhere. But there's no signs of life from anywhere else in the apartment. There's not like, there was no other indicator beside the weird shit that was everywhere that there might be someone else there. And let's just be said, you also give an impression right back, right? So I was like, okay, maybe,
I give an impression.
Well, as you're saying, I give an impression when you come in the door.
Yeah.
Like you have a big personality too. So I was like, maybe this dude is just into a lot of weird bullshit. I don't know. But there is something that I noticed right off the hop when I walked in. I came in, kind of went into your kitchen, and there was a Lifetime Hello Bastards poster on the fridge And 20 years later, you still have that poster on the fridge.
Yeah.
I can't get rid of it. It's mine.
It's Michaelanne's
my poster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I actually believe probably the porcelain doll was actually yours, and the Lifetime poster is Michaelanne's. That's the working theory I have now.
This was a big weekend because I think we figured out pretty quickly that we liked each other a lot.
Yes, but there was a moment. There was probably like a 20-minute window where I was undecided because you kept making Canadian jokes.
Oh, I used to be pretty bad about that too.
And the thing is, it wasn't like I'm not sensitive because I'm Canadian, but it was like a dog with a bone. Like you wouldn't let it go, and you're like,
oh yeah, or like one of those chew toys.
Yeah,
it
really
used
good.
to be more like that.
I really enjoyed Canadian jokes,
but
part of it was because I really enjoyed Canada so much in my youth, and I had so many Canadian friends, and we spent a lot of time up by Birch Bay, and I think I felt like my close association with Canada allowed for me to be more brutal about Canadians.
Yeah, like you were part of the inner circle of Canadians.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you would know who Laura Secord is or something like that.
Laura Secord, that's the, did it make pudding?
Yes.
I do know
but
who
that's
Laura
not
Secord
who
is.
Laura Secord is.
Right, but there's a company named Laura Secord.
Named after Laura Secord. Never mind.
Laura Secord was a famous pudding maker from Canada.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, if you use an example,
and for the listeners who might be, I have my hand up. I'm pointing at him like, just stop talking motion right now.
And this is
has that ever worked?
This happens at least once every time we see you.
Yes, absolutely.
And if we see you daily, that means every single day.
100%. So know this.
By the way, there's a photo of it.
So know this. I obviously Canadian, but I wasn't a Vancouver Canadian like you were used to. I lived in Calgary, so I was like a Canadian. I lived in the actual
is that like the Midwest.
Are you telling me that the most
Midwest
populous city west in the west part of your entire giant country, those people aren't real Canadians?
They're like us.
Vancouver and Toronto have much greater American influence into them. They're still true Canadians. I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to get me to say something crazy. Of course they're true Canadians, but especially at that time, there was a lot more American popular culture that would enter in those cities via touring bands and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, but
so no.
We got a lot of Canadian pop culture because we could only get Canadian TV when I was a little kid, so I grew up with a little bit of Canadian accent and everything.
Absolutely. But in Canada, in Calgary, there were not like a lot of American touring punk bands or any of those things. When I started spending time with Americans and they were like, oh, Canada, I was like, God, what knobs, like get over it.
Well, you know what? I think it's a testament to basically how close we became as friends that you were able to put up with real large rations of shit from me about being a Canadian.
There was only a 20-minute window where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, porcelain doll having character. And then 20 minutes later, I was like, oh, this is my favorite person that I've met. He's a great guy.
You both have this ability to just throw back and forth witty comments and satirical, jokes, and you can take it from each other. It's quite funny.
It was interesting when we met because that's when I was going through the beginning of what would be a bit of a life crisis where I was having a lot of problems with alcohol, really struggling with it. And the reason I was out on the West Coast, I was on this kind of like spirit journey. I don't know what I was doing. I was at home. I'd been having a lot of problems with alcohol, and the people I was around were all really good people, but there was just alcohol everywhere. And so I was really struggling with it.
Am I your spirit animal?
Oh, shit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I believe you once said that was a frog.
No. It's you are, especially at this point, for anyone who'd see you, you're essentially just a Sasquatch. So, which is, I understand why you're obsessed with Bigfoot because you now look like Bigfoot. But so it was this period where I'd really been struggling a lot with alcohol, and I remember it's this thing that people talk about where you try the cure of distance, right? And so I left Calgary for a bit. I'd gone on this road trip, tried to clear my head. And it's funny because you're also like, you're young, so you're a lot more dramatic than you are as an older person. I was like on this like finding myself journey, to the West Coast to hang out with Sean O'Leary. That's who I'm going to find myself with, apparently.
And Mike Kornitsky.
And Corn Dog, right.
Affectionately called Corn Dog. Yeah. He probably doesn't like it.
Yeah. So that is when we met each other. And during that time was also the first and last time I've ever shot a gun, because you took me to a firing range with Maddie.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first weekend.
That was the first weekend.
I don't think, did we even talk about that when Matisse was on the show?
It was the first time I ever fired a gun, and it was all the things that you would think it was if you were Canadian and from Calgary.
Oh wow.
You know, I used to enjoy we have these ranges out on the east side, and I used to enjoy going out there and taking people, because you could rent a pistol and you go out on the range and you get some bullets, and it seemed fairly safe. Mm-hmm. And I was good with that. And it was when someone would, especially when people would come down from Canada where maybe there's a little less access to that stuff, mm-hmm. It was always kind of an eye opener and an exciting thing to do and say you did. And it seemed safe. But yeah, there were some accidents in those ranges and people died.
Yeah, there was a real freak there that when we went, there was a dude that definitely looked like he would have been chilling in It, like the book It. He would have been one of the like cronies of the like bad like cheesy gang.
Oh yeah, before the apocalyptic rock fight.
Yeah, and yeah, he looked like one of those dudes. And he had a brown paper bag with him, and I don't know what was in the brown paper bag, but he was clutching it in one hand. Oh, dude.
That was probably how he was carrying his pistol.
Possibly. In my mind's eye, he's wearing a red and white striped shirt. Probably not. Probably not.
No. He was. Yeah. I'll just verify that. This is what we get to do on this podcast.
In my mind's eye, he looks like the Dutch kid from The Simpsons, grown up, wearing a red and white striped shirt. And
I can't think of that kid's name. Ooter?
Ooter. It looks like Ooter from The Simpsons. Grown up wearing a red and white striped shirt, and creepily holding a paper bag, possibly with a revolver in it.
So I guess my point about gun ranges is that I'm fairly uncomfortable with them now. I used to be much more comfortable. I'd rather go out in out in the woods somewhere and target shoot, if that was even going to happen, and it doesn't.
So that's the first weekend that you've ever met Dave. So you come down with Sean, or with
Corn Dog.
And
you weren't concerned that
you go out with Maddie, that's weird.
It was like a trip you met Greg Bennick that weekend. It was kind of like let's introduce Aram around.
Yeah, I've got this photo for you from that weekend that I've got to give you. It's It's a photo of you, Greg Bennick, and Corn Dog, because we went to a trial show at the Up and Down Club, and I will lay this out for you. We went to a trial show
on the first weekend.
Yeah, Left With Nothing played, and it was their first show, and they were awesome. And it was when they were like a straight edge band. Trial played, and they were awesome. They were really, really great. I had a journal with me, and I was writing all these journal notes, and I don't know where it is now, but I looked at it, I don't know, however many years ago, and I was laughing because it was just a different experience than what I would have had in Calgary. But wait, I'll get to the part. We were all sitting at this table, and a dude came up and was chatting with you, and I don't know who it was, but he had just gotten back from New York. And while in New York, he had gotten his first tattoo, and it had been tattooed on him by Civ. And he was like, and so a couple things stood out. First, I was like, holy crap, you just got a tattoo from Civ. That's amazing. The second, it was definitely a tribal armband. And I was like, legitimately bummed for the dude. Like, I was like, awesome, you got tattooed by Civ. You also got the wackest, like you got like a tribal armband.
Do you know who that person is?
No, it was just some blonde dude. He was like,
oh, they're probably listening.
Hey man,
take a photo of your tattoo.
Sorry about that tattoo, dog. I hope you got a sweet cover up.
Hey, maybe it's just a matter of pride that it was tattooed by Civ. And come on, Tribal's going to come back around.
Yeah, man. It was dope. I remember all these stuff. I also remember something.
You have a crazy memory.
I'll tell you something else.
This is going to be a long podcast.
I have something else that you won't remember.
Okay.
So during that trip, because, I've been a huge record collector since I was a kid. There was a record store that was not Fallout Records. It was actually up more on Capitol Hill near where Pagliacci's used to be.
Oh,
It was very short-lived.
yeah.
And I bought an original.
Mostly CDs?
No,
Between Pagliacci's and Magic Dragon
it was on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait. Santucci's. What was the name of that pizza? Not Santucci's. What's the name of the pizza place that got closed down recently?
Oh,
not Pagliacci's.
Yeah. That's how quickly it's left our memory.
But no, it's the one Chris Williams loves.
Picora's.
That's it. Anyways, it was.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
It was on the other side of the street from Picora's.
Oh, that might still be Zion's Gate?
Maybe.
That's still there if that's the one.
Anyways,
and that's been there for a while, and it's a decent store.
There's a record store there, and I went to that record store before we hooked up with you, and I bought an original copy of Screaming for Change on Wishing Well, which this is way before they repressed it, so it was like not super hard to find, but I was psyched. You wouldn't have found that in Calgary. I got that. I got a copy of The One Thing That Still Holds True, that Chain compilation that had just been released a few months earlier. And I got a copy of the Carrie Nation 7-inch. And so we went to your house later on and we were staying there and whatever. And I pulled out my records just to check them out. And you were psyched on the Uniform Choice, indifferent on the Carrie Nation, and definitely started making fun of Chain of Strength. Now, keeping in mind, being from Calgary, you didn't get pieces of culture as much, right? Like,
right.
Of course you'd get like, the odd MRR or whatever, but it's not like the oral history of hardcore had not really translated up there in the same way, right?
Can we be clear? I love Chain of Strength.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I don't like that CD.
Well, this is what you...
Or you had the vinyl, but what did I say?
This is what you took issue with. So I was like, I love Chain of Strength. I'm super into Chain of Strength. And of course, you couldn't have gotten the 7-inches in Calgary. There's no way you would get those. And so it's out. I'm like, it was been reissued. I was really psyched. And you were like, oh, The One Thing That Still Holds True. That's a real interesting title. And I was like, why? And you're like, well, those guys aren't straight edge anymore. And keeping in mind, I was not straight edge at this point, nor had I ever been straight edge. And in fact, had like pretty bad drinking problem. I was crestfallen. I was like, what do you mean they're not straight edge? You're like, yeah, they're not straight edge. And it just blew my mind because I was so naive when I was younger and I lived in Calgary that when a punk band would sing about something, I'd be like, oh, this is exactly what these people are about. It's like, you're singing.
You took them at their word.
Yeah. Oh, you're singing about doing heroin. You must be doing heroin in between takes of songs. You're singing about being a good person. You're clearly a good person. Oh, you're saying you're straight edge. That means you're straight edge forever. And it was, I know this sounds ludicrous to say. Of course, we were both a lot younger at this point, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean, I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I was 20. Okay. I was 20 or I was 21.
And I was 25.
Yeah. So when you told me that, I remember getting like irritated, like, oh God, this guy, man, he never has anything good to say about anything. Like,
and actually, the way you've described me, if I saw you getting irritated, I probably then went.
Totally.
I probably went more with it because honestly, like, I always kind of had a weird feeling about Chain of Strength in terms of who they were in comparison to their music, and this is the reason because Chain of Strength on a compilation had a lead into one of the songs where they basically dissed Kevin Seconds.
Oh,
and
yeah, you thought
you always talk about 7 years. I thought you were committed for life.
Let down.
And so where has been? I mean, that basically bummed me out on Chain of Strength right off the bat. Once I heard that,
you just said you like Chain of Strength like 2 minutes ago.
I like Chain of Strength. I can hold two different opinions.
Yo, Rainfest, Beef 2015, Dave Larson versus Chain of Strength.
No, it's going to be fantastic. Oh God, maybe they'll record dissing me and put it on a record. Okay, so that would be amazing.
I've been a man who's been known to make things happen.
I am excited to see Chain of Strength at Raidfest. It's going to be cool. I have spent a lot of time with those Chain of Strength 7-inches, and I love them a lot. But I always had a problem with that. And yeah, I mean, realistically, you and I have been involved in straight edge for a long time.
We should reenact.
Where did the members of Chain of Strength fit into our lives?
we should reenact the end of 8 Mile when they play, and we'll just have a wrap off. You versus Janice Train.
Oh,
They win. Janice Train is awesome.
I'm forecasting heavy.
But
how many times have you two had this actual conversation about it?
Probably never.
No,
not exactly, but we've had permutations of this. Yes.
Because I seem to think that you have these kinds of conversations all of the time.
Oh, but we
You
are
guys,
talking
literally,
about 100
the two of
different
you
bands,
literally
dear.
philosophize about straight edge and hardcore.
Yeah,
Do you know that? Do you know that is what the two of you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that is how you spend your time together. Like, you're his boyfriend.
And you've been putting out.
I mean,
This is taking a real turn.
This is taking a turn. Well, this goes
No,
back to
serious.
why you're in the room right
Right.
now, is because he didn't know you existed.
he is your best friend. Like you have a person, right? There's always a person that impacts your life greater than somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the friend world, for you, at least in the last 20 years, it's Aram. Like, because I hadn't met you, and you were like, so I'm a snuffleupagus, but
Yeah.
you were like this weird ghost of a dude.
I was definitely Big Bird.
Yeah, okay.
You were each other's
in so many ways.
snuffleupagus.
Yeah, it was weird. And so for me, I didn't meet you until 1997.
Did we have a dual snuffleupagus
I
relationship?
think we did.
It's like a yin yang. It's like two
And
snuffies.
I weirdly feel like I
connected
paid you.
at the trunk to tail.
Yo, that's dope.
Dope. But I mean, like, and you have then greatly impacted my life, right? Because you've been around so much. I mean, you still have a key to my house.
I do.
You actually have a key to my last apartment and the apartment before that. Probably somewhere on a
And I have a copy of your credit card too.
That's you probably do, actually.
So pretty quickly after we became friends, you essentially were given a key to the apartment. It was like, whenever you're down, you just
No, it had to be later.
No.
It had he was living in Vancouver already.
Right. But that's pretty quickly. That's what I mean.
It's like a year later.
I can tell you very closely to what
once
happened.
he knew you. Because we couldn't
I didn't
do
meet him
that
until
deal.
after my trip.
Yeah.
I did not meet him until
Yeah,
the
I know.
fall of
But what
year.
I'm saying is, once he's our friend,
Yeah.
he's got a key to our apartment.
I met you,
think so.
Michaelanne. I met you at the apartment.
Yeah.
I like about a year later, after I'd already moved here, I came down to see whatever show. We met then, and then I don't remember. Obviously. I mean, from there, I just think we were like all just best buddies, like super tight. You were also the person, Michaelanne was the person who introduced me to Jimmy Eat World, the band. And Sean O'Leary had tried to play them to me before, but Sean O'Leary has terrible taste in music. So I would just usually.
Oh, wait a minute. Sean O'Leary is currently in Japan cursing you in a language I can't understand.
Yo, quote me on that. but Michaelanne was playing whatever, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it was Jimmy Eat World Clarity album.
Clarity came along a little bit later. We were actually listening to Static Prevails in that apartment.
I definitely listened to Clarity in that apartment, but the record she introduced me to might have been Static Prevails.
That sounds
at that
right.
time, but I remember reading the Clarity insert on the chair that you had by your window. Why do I remember all of this better than either one of you?
Because I was listening.
Because I have the worst memory in the
I was
world.
listening to, because Clarity doesn't come out for a couple of years. But
Was that like
I do
98?
remember talking to you. No, I do remember talking to you about Clarity. You can look it up.
I don't have my phone on
I
me.
do remember talking to you about Clarity and you saying that you had kind of turned the corner on them and liked them.
It was because of Michaelanne. Can I hijack for a second?
Yeah.
We're still, just so everyone's clear, we're still starting the podcast.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I feel like I've hijacked it, but
dude, go.
okay. This was also a period. So this is now 1997 when I've moved to Vancouver for university.
We're gonna go back to my favorite story.
I know, absolutely. But I'm going to tell you about something that I vividly remember.
Okay, all right.
So 1997, I've moved here. I'm coming down to Seattle all the time for shows at this point, driving down all the time.
Because it was a good time for shows.
It was a great time for
Oh
shows.
my
So
God,
many
it was
good
such
shows.
a good time for shows.
And Dave, this is when you were buying every former Edge person's record
That's
collection. And this is early days.
Didn't do as many as you think.
Yo,
but
this
yeah.
is early days of eBay. And so like you are selling stuff on eBay, and every time I'd come down, it just seemed like every time I'd come down, you had just bought like Gorilla Biscuits on Purple, or like you were buying these records that were in my mind legendary records. Like, oh my God, I'll never even see one of those again. Cause I was like young enough, and it was before like you could just get anything on the internet. And I would come down and be like, whoa, Dave, I can't believe you have Disengage on clear. That's crazy. And you'd always be like, yo, Ram, I know you really want this record, but like, I have to get top dollar for this. I have to. And you had this way of saying it.
Wow.
You had this way of saying it that was like, if I don't get top dollar for this record, which at that time was probably like $25 or $40.
We're going to lose the farm.
Yeah, but it was like this air of like Depression era America. Like, if I don't get this,
We were
my
that poor, though.
8 children are going to die from starvation. So I'd be like, oh man, like I can't offer this dude $40 for this record because like he needs that money. So I would always leave empty handed and not like get any of these records. And you definitely got like breakdown.
Just so you know, no one got those records.
Oh no, I know. You true to you used your Depression era tactics. So you're like, no, none of you people are getting these. And you sold them all on eBay. And I'm sure you got, 1997, it was good. You did the right thing. But I have such vivid memories of those times because it was the first time I ever saw any of these records. And
you were probably there when I was actually still doing either Maximum Rock and Roll Classifieds or AOL message boards.
Yeah.
Even prior to eBay, I sold stuff that way too.
And I don't want to make Calgary sound like some total hick town, but I mean, the amount of people that were into that kind of hardcore in the city was like maybe 10, maximum 10 people. And again, it was like, of course the internet existed, but it was just not a thing that you'd go on and...
Yeah, it was in its baby form.
Yeah, you wouldn't go and get a bunch of records. So I knew these records existed, and I knew they existed because I'm a nerd and would read like, zines and all this stuff all the time, but actually seeing them, and it would blow my mind. And I just at the time was just really psyched I'd get to see them and kind of like check out the layouts and everything. And that's also the first time you ever revealed to me your theory about Porcell's nose on the Disengage 7-inch. Which years later I confronted Porcell with, which is a totally other
Let's
different story.
explain what this theory is if we're going to bring it up.
Well, actually, I explained it on Edgeland podcast, and much to Bill's delight, we had a great conversation.
And this was, okay, so this is something where I've mixed up, and I can't remember if I thought you told me or I told you.
Oh, you definitely told me.
But you look at that picture, and everything about it seems wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like they needed Porcell in the photo.
Yeah.
It was a good photo, but it just needed Porcell.
Mm-hmm.
And so they cut the photo, and it was pre-Photoshop, or even if it wasn't pre-Photoshop, they still did it with an X-Acto knife, and they just got a little too close. They cut in a little on the nose because nobody's nose is naturally that sharp.
Yo, and the best part about it is, well, there's many best parts of it, but I'll say that photo, they did a t-shirt of Ray's Jump with that photo, and there's different versions of that t-shirt. And one of them, they were like, we don't like the angle of his foot to be on a t-shirt. And so they bent his foot in a different angle.
So you're saying they have a history of photo manipulation?
Absolutely. Well, whoever did that t-shirt, I don't know if it was anyone from the Youth of Today camp, but
they had a rogue photo editor.
2014. You got to think, like a dude like Porcell's probably had a lot of people say weird shit to him. And I sat down in 2014, totally earnestly, grown-ass man, real career. Like,
this is why I like you. It's these moments that you're about to share that I love about you
and
most.
Porcell, poor guy, is drinking like a smoothie at a health bar. I walk in, and he was like, hey, Ram, what's up? And we just start chatting. And I was like, listen, man, I've been carrying around something for years that's been weighing on me, and I have to ask you about it. And I go in and describe this layout to him, and I was like, so is that photo real? And he was like, and he literally said, he's like, how much time have you spent with this layout? I was like, oh, dude, just answer the question. And he was like, no, that's like a real photo. And just like I said on Edgeland podcast, I don't believe him. I need to see the negatives. Like, I need to see this because it looks like he's like someone somewhere was like, we need to send this record to press. And like, no, absolutely not. Look at that empty space in that corner there. You know what? The only thing that will fill that space, Porcell. Like that only Porcell fills that space. Where's a photo that Porcell's looking up in the air? And then they cut that out and they stick it in there. Like, it looks...
Yeah, but the lighting will also be wrong on it.
I'm just telling you right now that I want to see the negatives before I believe anything. Anyways, it's like,
It could be a trick of light.
so Porcel, very grown ass man with like kids and all this stuff. He's sitting there drinking his smoothie. And he's got this maniac in his face is like, I don't really believe that you exist in this photo. How is this guy actually interpreting this conversation? Is he like, wow, how cool is it that this guy cares enough about my record that he's looked at it that way? Or is he like, I wonder if this dude has a knife?
Aram, you are destined for similar treatment.
I had something so crazy happen to me 2 weeks ago that maybe now I know how he felt after that
Is
conversation.
it a story you can tell? We are just totally off the format. But
I was at a restaurant and had someone legitimately accost me about Champion, like in an uncomfortable way.
would you like to say hi to them? Maybe they'll listen.
Hey man, thanks. Thanks, dog. But yeah, it was something. Anyways,
There's got to be an altered photo of you out there. There's got to be something that someone's going to be able to fixate about you.
I don't know. I'm sure it might be on how good looking I am.
Back to the beginning. So
God, that is such a you thing to say.
on the Sunday of you staying down there on the very first day, the very first weekend we met, you guys stayed till Sunday, and I believe it was Sunday when Kornitsky might have said something about Michaelanne. Someone said something about Michaelanne, and you asked who Michaelanne was, and it was revealed that I had a girlfriend, and I think I probably at that point made a joke about, oh, she's from Niagara Falls, because that's my go-to John Hughes thing, if she's not actually there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you kind of had this like, oh, and I could see like all the tumblers falling into place. I understood it. And then I immediately looked over in the corner and saw that doll and said, you think that's mine?
Yeah, and then you made it run at me.
And then I started using it as a puppet to attack you.
Yeah.
I said, did you look over there and think it was going to run across the floor in the middle of the night and attack you? So it was after that it was good. So we're going to go forward a tiny little bit.
Okay.
Because you go back to Calgary, apparently. You did your time in Vancouver, whatever you were down there for, and you go back to Calgary, but we stayed in touch. And you liked Screwjack, which was the band that I did with Jake Snyder and those guys. And
as a sidebar for anyone listening, they should check out that Screwjack recording because it's unbelievably good.
Even I like it.
And it's a really good recording, too.
It is.
It's a well-recorded record. The lyrics are awesome. The performances are great. It's a very, very cool record. And if you were of that time, like that era of hardcore, it's when a lot of really cool creative stuff was happening before things got a little bit too uniform again. That is a really good record. So people should buy that record.
Well, thank you.
And it was fun to watch you just practice, or what, the 1-2 shows you had? I don't know.
Oh, we played a few times.
Yeah.
We were called Lit before we were Screwjack.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. But here's the thing: you were going to put it out originally, and that was your first. You wanted to do a label, and it just didn't come together. I was behind it. I think we were all behind it. It's just not everything came together. But I understood from that weekend that you were not straight edge.
That's right.
And we were sending kind of funny emails back and forth. And then I get an email from you. I don't know how long after you've left, but you have a signature on the email that says, still struggling to live this life drug-free.
Absolutely.
And I sent a response to you where I made brutal fun of that. I think I just reworded it some way.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was? Because
No,
I don't.
I don't remember it, but I remember you doing that.
And I think it hurt your feelings.
I don't think it hurt my feelings, but more so what it was that like I came home.
I just thought you were messing with me. I thought that was your taking a shot.
No, so and I've said this a lot in different interviews and stuff over the years, is that all of the New York bands, huge, obviously they're unbelievable bands, and that they had such a cool scene, and then like DC and all of the like Boston, all of these places that did all this stuff. Huge influence, but it wasn't really until Northwest bands started to come into Calgary, and then I started to get to know people out there, that I really felt much more like, oh, people like me, like young, just normal people can do this stuff. Because if you look like an Agnostic Front layout, those dudes look tough. And I mean, for that time, it's like having tattoos wasn't a normal thing. So like dudes in Agnostic Front, they actually look Like to get from their house to CBGB's, they actually, in reality, had to fight an army of skinheads. But like they were skinheads. So like the counter skinheads, the evil skinheads, and possibly jump through a brick wall, like do something like insane.
Yeah.
So when I'd listen to those bands, and also it's like a really kind of street sound, right? When I listen to those bands, I was like, I love this, but I mean, I don't think I could ever play this. 7 Seconds was a huge turning point for me. Minor Threat was a huge turning point for me, obviously, because these were things where I could identify more with the types of stuff. But when I started coming out to Vancouver and then I went down to Seattle and just seeing like lots of people that were just like me, and doing stuff like record labels, because you were doing Excursion at the time, and just meeting all these people that, for example, when I met Pettibone, it's like I was a huge Undertow fan, but it was like he didn't treat me like a fan. He treated me like just another hardcore dude. It really solidified for me this idea of, this is just a thing that I can do. And it sounds strange if you didn't grow up like that, or if you've grown up like that, but coming from where I came from, how I came from, and especially how I was raised, I always had a sense of being a lot like less than other people. And it was the first time I was around people where I was like, oh, we're actually all kind of equal. I'm not less than. And it was really profoundly impactful for me. So again, I was struggling a lot, really bad problems with alcohol. Got home, and that continued from when I met you until the end of the summer. And then a series of events happened that were like really like super impactful, terrible, like really, really bad events. And I got up one day and I said to my girlfriend at the time, who was just a nasty person, I said, I'm done. That's it. I'm never going to drink again. And she was like, there's no way. She's like, you'll totally drink again. She started laughing at me, and I was like, no, I'm not going to drink again. And I never have. I've never drank in that time since then. So it's been like 18 years. But I didn't call myself straight edge right away. And it was until it was like, I don't know, when I didn't get my first email address until 96 at some point. And it was like well into the college year that I started emailing you. So this time must have been like super late fall.
96.
Yeah, like probably about late fall.
Yep.
And that's when I started actually calling myself straight edge. And I wasn't, my feelings weren't hurt that you were doing it. I
didn't get the memo.
I felt embarrassed because I was like, oh, should I call myself straight edge? Like that seems like a weird thing to do. And then, you, of course, being you, made fun of me about it. And then me being me, it was like, oh, if someone's going to make fun of me about it, I'm going to make fun of them like 10 times worse. And then it was fine.
But then when you let me know that you were serious about it, mm-hmm. I was like, oh man, this is a big deal with everything he's told me about himself. This is a big deal.
Oh my God, I can totally remember this. I had no idea who you were.
And Michaelanne, I came out of my office and went, Michaelanne, listen to this thing that Aram just said to me.
Yeah. But then when he figured out that you really were straight edge, I don't know how that progressed. You can talk about that. It was like the twinkle in his eye. I mean, seriously.
Partner in crime.
Like, oh my God. Like, we're
going to take over.
Well, yeah, you were like, I can finally date him. Like, I mean, seriously, but no, I mean, it was kind of like that.
You realize that
it's
every
like
time you say something like that, you just give Matt Matsuoka crazy ammunition.
It's true. But I mean this in the most,
this is
like,
how he
way.
views
like,
all straight edge.
That was how I felt back then, right?
Well,
like, we've only been together like a year. Really, like, and to, like, honestly, at the beginning of our relationship was not super stable with where we were living, and like things moved really, really fast. Like I was living with you within a few months of meeting you and dating you. That was crazy,
right?
And then I'm thrown into your weird straight edge world that I knew about it.
You got a crash course.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it. I was
your weird straight edge world.
It was so weird to me.
I think that's,
and you came into it, and you
fair.
and I remember telling him when he came out of I'm like, dude, give the guy a break. Like this, how do you announce that you're straight edge? And then I'm like, why the fuck would you announce that you're straight edge? Who cares? Like, at the time it seemed like a weird cult to me.
What was the day?
September 1st.
Yeah.
September 1st, 1996.
But yes, there was a glint in his eye.
Is the day you claimed?
No, September. Well, no. It's the day I stopped drinking.
Oh.
But I mean, I don't know what day I actually was like, I am straight edge. But
a day when you said you okay.
But I'll say this, and again, it's just like, I think anyone who grew up in a place where you felt isolated, but I felt isolated, but then I felt socially isolated. But then even within my group of friends, I felt I hate to use the term, like alone in the crowd, right? Because I was the guy that would go to the party and do the thing where everyone afterwards was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Like I was the guy that
so
would like,
hard for me to, well, but not at the same time.
well, I was the guy that would like get in the fight or like, do whatever. Like I was, because again, a guy with kind of a bigger personality and definitely someone who's, I'm not going to take a lot of shit from anyone. So put alcohol into the mix and it's not a good scenario. So even within my group of friends, I was the guy where they were like, we grew up together, so we knew each other. And I still know all those guys, but I was definitely one where they're like, if there's one person we need to stop drinking, it's you. You need to stop drinking. But no one ever said that to me because we were all young. We didn't know better. But when I went straight edge, all of my friends were like, yes, that's awesome. Like you should do that forever. don't
the ones
stop.
that knew you.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else up there that was straight edge?
There were a few guys and they were super cool because they had been into it for a while.
Yeah.
And so they were really like super, super supportive of me. And because anyone that knew me knew that I had real problems with alcohol. And so when I did that, it was like kind of a big deal. I remember doing it and feeling super embarrassed about it because drinking was such a big part of my identity, like being that guy. And it was pretty pivotal, that trip. So I know earlier I was laughing. It was like my finding myself trip, but it was
You did.
well, it was a pivotal trip in the sense of, I'd never been surrounded by enough people that were of that mindset, like that, straight edge is just a normal thing. It really gave me a sense that, if I did this, it wouldn't be something that I'd be totally alone in. And that was super important for me. So in Calgary, everyone was like really supportive. And then when I came out here, I was like surrounded by straight edge people. But that first year was dicey. And I will say that for sure, because I was definitely like really, if I was the kind of guy that if I felt a lot of pressure about something, I would get like, I want to drink and all these things. So I had a lot of difficulty in that first year.
And that was a fallback that you had been used to.
Totally. So that first year was really, really tough. So when I eventually moved out here, I had felt I was kind of more tried and true, like I'd made it through that tough year. And of course, when you're that young, you're like, I've made it through that. I've been through the fire, And so I got my first straight edge tattoo when I moved out here. Embarrassing to say, first of many, many straight edge tattoos.
And which tattoo was it?
Embarrassing.
Well, I've got a lot of straight edge tattoos.
You have a lot of tattoos.
I do. I at one point when I got to I might have 5 straight edge tattoos.
Which is the first one?
The X is on my left arm.
So when I met you, you did not have any tattoos.
No, I didn't have one tattoo. So yeah, that trip was important for me for sure. And a huge part of why and how I did a lot of early hardcore was based on saying, hey, if anyone out there ever felt like I did, especially the sense of like feeling less than, because unless you felt like that in your life growing up the way I grew up, and for any of the listeners, it's not like I grew up on the streets. I just grew up in a really very tough situation, and feeling less than is something that's like, it's just this like prevalent thing where you go through the day and you just don't weigh yourself you don't hold yourself to the same measure as other people. So straight edge and having those experiences was the thing that was like a great equalizer for me. So, a lot of people say like, oh, straight edge saved my life. And, we all kind of laugh like, oh, that's corny. But straight edge is a really cool thing in a lot of ways, because even at the very basic thing, if you're someone who's really like fucked up and you have a tough life, it can help you actually equalize things and maybe feel not less than anymore. And it's cool when you can get to a place in your life where you don't have to feel more than or less than. You can just be. And that's like a huge thing, I think, for anyone who came up in a really tough situation to get that balance. So it was good. Straight edge was a huge part of that.
Very cool. Well, so I'm going to ask kind of some questions. Now that we're an hour in, we'll go backwards a little bit.
We literally have been talking about the first year we knew each other.
No, we haven't even made it through the first year.
Well, okay. So what ends up happening after that is basically Aram becomes almost like part of the family. Shortly thereafter, he starts.
And I think he spent the entire summer I was gone with you.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, and then after that, you had a key. In every place you've had a key. And I mean, when you were doing React, you started doing React here at this place. Is that right? When you first started, before you moved over to the React, React offices?
That's
I mean,
right.
it's always you've always just been,
We packed the
part of the
most.
scene.
Yeah, we packed the get the most 7-inch in the Bro Zone.
the Bro Zone,
The
which
Bro
is
Zone.
a section of this house we are in currently.
Yeah. I kind of feel like you've always just been my my Snuffleupagus roommate.
Well, we're no longer the Snuffleupaguses.
No, that's true.
Snuffleupagus.
I think so. I think
Snuffleupagus.
But you know, like, I
Snuffleupagus.
didn't even wash the sheets in there because I knew you'd be back soon, and you could
That's just
I'm
unhygienic.
sorry, but I didn't.
Fair enough. You also had that horrendous pull-out couch that,
Oh, God, that was
essentially just
awful.
formed a V.
We still have it.
But at the apex of the V, there was like a ditch. And so, like, it wasn't even like you were in like a cozy kind of, hammock
I'm sorry,
scenario.
my free lodging was not comfortable.
Well, I'm just saying, you said it wasn't free because I paid a price and intense discomfort every time I had to sleep on that thing.
Oh man,
It was very expensive.
No, it was dirt cheap.
Okay, so here's how we'll transition.
Okay.
Should people find it strange that you've gone from being this fairly well-known like hardcore personality to having a really celebrated singer-songwriter career in the Portland area?
Ah, yes. The other Aram Arslanian.
Wait, that's not you?
No. I've been mistaken many times. So this friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey man, I really love this folk stuff that you're doing. I had no idea that you recorded with Orphan Train." And I was like, "What the hell is an Orphan Train?" And then I, pretty much instantly realized, it's like, "Oh, you're talking about the other Aram Arslanian." And there was a pause on the other end. And he was like, "There's actually another Aram Arslanian?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. He's a great musician, da 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 da." And then as soon, it's like the tone of admiration instantly was out of his voice. It was like you turned off a light switch, like the light was like, "Oh, well then you're just a capable hardcore guitar player." And I was like, "Yes, that's correct." But recently a pub in Portland tweeted to me and was like, "Aram Arslanian's playing here on Tuesday." And I tweeted back, I was like, "Wrong Aram Arslanian." And of course them being like, "Haha, how many Aram Arslanian?" Of course it's the same Aram Arslanian. They actually didn't believe me and just kept tweeting. And I was like, I won't see you on Tuesday. That's not me.
It's not a terribly common name. So the fact that there would be two guys of roughly the same age, both involved in music, is it actually a common name?
Does he have hair?
No. Oh, no. Yes, he does.
Yes.
He has hair.
I'm so used to saying that about myself. No, he does have hair. He's,
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Cool looking
I'm wondering
dude.
if he's truly your doppelganger.
No.
Okay.
He's a very, very,
So it's just in his name and...
I think he has a rich mane of hair, in fact.
Okay.
And he plays folk music and is a very good musician. So he might actually be opposite world Aram. Yeah.
Bizarro?
Bizarro Aram.
There you go.
Or perhaps I am the Bizarro Aram for him. I have no
I
idea.
think that's actually probably the way it is.
But he is a successful musician who's very talented, writes great stuff. I've listened to his music. It's really good. He's got a mane of hair that's just rich and
You
full.
keep going back to the full rich mane of
Well,
hair.
I mean, listen, man. You
Maybe
crave what you don't have.
Maybe he could get a gig selling...
Vidal
Shampoo.
Sassoon. Yeah.
God, I remember how you struggled with that.
Now, I'm going to have to throw something out here.
Okay.
We are at the time... Are you enjoying yourself sitting in here? Because I'm enjoying...
I'm fascinated at what I don't remember. And but when he starts saying it all, it makes total sense. It's like, oh my God, yes, okay, now I remember where I actually was and when and where. But yeah, but I told you I was right. I didn't actually meet him in the flesh till he had moved to Vancouver.
That totally
and
makes
was coming
sense.
down,
So when he
and
was,
I was
when
gone
he was
that
coming
summer,
down, he
so
just
it was
kept
the
missing
fall of
you.
'97.
It was a real Snuffleupagus
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, do you want to be here for where we go now, or did you want to take the dogs?
No. You want to be here.
Oh, you want to hang?
Yeah.
The dogs?
Is
can-
it gonna? I don't think it's supposed to be in a Michaelanne and a Aram.
Oh,
But
it's totally
I'm having
all right for
fun
you to
with
be
you.
part of this.
I'm
You're
having
part
fun
of the
with you
story.
here.
But I feel like I'm somehow an interloper. Somehow I've
Are you doing
hijacked.
that thing where we're saying stay and you're like, no, and then we're like, no, we really want you to stay.
Because I'm that girl.
Yeah, stay. Just stay. We're having
Okay,
fun.
fine, I'll stay. Your entire life here in Seattle, the one that affects Dave, is mine too.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
That's
although,
why I want you to stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have to do just to maintain some semblance of the format of the show is we got to figure out who you are.
Okay, who I am now?
Where'd you come from?
My parents.
Yeah, no. Where were you born?
Born in Montreal. Grew there until I was 5. Moved to Calgary. And so when I was in Montreal, it was when we were surrounded by a lot of family and things were really good in the home. And then we moved to Calgary.
Do you remember that time? It's up until you're 5 years old.
Yeah. I remember parts of it. I definitely remember parts of it. And then we moved to Calgary, and I was there until I was, I don't know, 20, I guess. And in Calgary, we were very isolated, so there was none of our family was there. And Calgary, where we grew up, I grew up in a neighborhood called Willow Park, and we were one of the very, very few immigrant families there. And not only are we immigrants, but we have totally bizarro sounding names, so I grew up around kids named like Steve and Sally, and then me and my sister come in and we've got these super exotic sounding names, and it was tough right off the bat. Like it's weird because like I say racism, but it's like I'm obviously someone that you would identify as being Caucasian, but just
your parents had accents.
Well, my dad did.
Yeah.
And there's just tons of like racist comments all the time. And like right off the bat, as soon as we moved to Calgary, it was like an uphill struggle. And I got in tons of fist fights and all this stuff. And things unraveled super quick at home, like really, really bad. Like bad, and they stayed bad for a really long time.
Between you and your parents?
Well, between just the family. It got really bad. And so in retrospect, looking back on that stuff, I mean, everyone did what they could do. So no, I would certainly not say that, now at this point in my life, I have a great relationship with my parents, but it was a very tough period from when I was in the home from age 5 all the way to, I moved out of my parents' house when I was like in my late teens. Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah, when I was in my late teens. And it was a real rough period for sure. So during that whole time, I did the thing that people do. You feel like an outsider. You feel like, because my peer group had rejected me because of, being foreign or, being the immigrant family. And then things were really rough at home, so I didn't feel like I had anywhere. I didn't have anything. And so I did the thing that you do. You get into skateboarding, which is awesome.
Okay,
amazing.
So what age?
I got into skateboarding in grade 5.
Grade 5, so you're 10?
Yeah, I guess so.
So that's 5 years of just casting. You grow, you learn. It's kind of hard to, what were you when you were 8 years old,
Yeah.
But you identify 10 years old skateboarding as being a big change in your life.
Yeah, that's when I started to become who I am today, for sure. So I grew up, like, you listen to whatever's on the radio, right? So a lot of like the new romantic stuff was coming out, like Duran Duran was huge and everything. But I'll tell you, the first band that I can remember really being like, that's the band.
Look, I love that you just said new romantic, because no one says that.
Right.
So we're talking about Duran Duran and Adam Ant.
Oh yeah,
and it's like Psychedelic Furs.
Yeah, all that stuff. That was what was going on.
Yeah.
My sister, for her birthday, got 2 tapes: The Clash Combat Rock and Beastie Boys' License to Ill.
Wow.
And my first real sense of like when I started to become like the guy that I am now is when those 2 tapes entered in our house, and I got into skateboarding like either before or around that time. And then all I did after that was listen to those tapes or anything that sounded like that and skateboard constantly. And it was interesting. So it's like she got those tapes, and it was almost like I had 2 paths. I either got really into punk or I got really into rap. And I got really into rap. Right off the bat. I got, Run DMC and all that stuff, Public Enemy, like anything that was coming out that I could get my hands on. That was my first real love of music, which is
ironic.
Totally ironic.
Yeah.
By the way, that's everything you just said was
time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But I was also reading Thrasher a lot, and there was all of these thrash bands and all those things. So I had an interest. Like I knew about all of these bands, and when I say I knew about them just because I would read like Puss Zone and all that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. When skateboarding had its big crash, when I got into skateboarding, it was like a pretty popular thing, but there was a big crash in skateboarding where nobody was into it. And I was still into it. And so that was like a guy who was already an outcast, even more so of an outcast, which then was like, I deepened my, absolute love of skateboarding, and really, especially that time. And I'm not trying to be that guy that was like, I was into it before you, but I really was like the only kid that was into rap in my neighborhood, except for like one other guy. And so I was into skateboarding, I was into rap, into reading Thrasher magazine all the time. And I remember when Thrasher Skate Rock Noise Force came out, and I bought it based on the cover art. And I was like, this is sick. I have to get this.
Of course.
So then I started getting some gateway bands like that. I got kicked out of junior high in grade 8 for getting into too many fistfights because the thing that skateboarding had taught me, and started getting skateboard videos and stuff like that, right? I basically started to take no shit because of skateboarding. And I became the kid that if you picked on me, you better come ready to fight.
But didn't people learn this? Were you in a place where people were like, well, that means we're going to pick on him more because we're all going to step up and see?
Dude. I like where I grew up. Not that Calgary is any different than any other place. It's not like Calgary's...
Well, they're Canadian cowboys, right?
Yes. It's like the Texas of Canada.
Okay.
So, and by the way, people in Calgary are totally wonderful. This has nothing to do about whether or not it's a good place. But
this was just your experience.
It was just my experience. Yeah. So, I grew up, there was no skateboarders in my school, like very, very few skateboarders. And I was just the one that was the most vocal, the most like in your face about stuff. And if you came to me picking a fight or not, if you came to me making fun of me in front of people, you were going to get a fist. Like that was it. And there was no other way. So I remember the breaking point at the school, and the school was actually really cool because they understood I was more so, they knew that I was the one that was like getting backed into the corner, but they also knew that I was the one taking it from like maybe a couple kids making fun of me to like people, smashing each other. So the breaking point was I had this really cool vice principal named Mr. Jones, and he had said to me, listen, I know what's going on. I know why you're fighting. I totally understand. If something's going to happen, you just tell me in advance and I'll make sure it doesn't happen. But there's no way you go to your principal. You just don't do it.
You don't.
But
Mr. Jones, Billy's picking on me.
Well, Mr. Jones, like at least he was trying to reach out to this like clearly troubled kid, right?
Yeah.
And especially at this point, there was like really pitched stuff going on home, like really like bad. So one day I got in consecutive fights. I got in a fight with one guy, and as I was leaving the fight from that guy, I got in a fight with another guy instantly, like within a 30 minutes, or 30 second span, essentially. And the one guy, I can't remember his name, but the second guy was this guy, Alan. And I just clocked him, just smashed him. And we just started going at it hard. And the principals, like, there's the principal and the vice principal literally pulled me off him like a rabid dog, like off, like, it was like bad. And that was the end. They're like, they kept me in the school that year, but they said, you're done. You just can't come back here. It's too, and they weren't kicking me out because I was a bad kid. They were kicking me out because it was just too crazy. And so I was in the Catholic system, and my mom was a Catholic school teacher.
So
then you went from public school to Catholic school.
No.
Oh, no, that was Catholic school.
I was in Catholic school. My mom was a Catholic school teacher, and she wouldn't put me in public school.
Oh.
So she put me in another Catholic school, and my reputation...
Were you wearing a uniform?
No.
Okay.
My reputation preceded me, certainly. And so I went to this school, and the teachers there were like, this kid's bad news. But not like.
Wait, so you got to arrive at a new school as the bad boy.
But not to the students. The students didn't know, but the teachers definitely were like, oh, this kid's.
So it didn't really help.
This kid's a nut.
Girls.
Well, I get to this new school, and it was a school that was way more diverse than the one that I'd gone to before. So I was surrounded by tons of kids from different cultures. There was none of the, kind of like weird racist stuff that I'd experienced. But I had just come from a place where I always had to have a chip on my shoulder. So I roll into this place and kind of was like that guy. And it took me a while before I could chill out a little bit. And the kids that I met there are still guys I know today. They're the guys who eventually were like, thank God you stopped drinking. But they were really patient with me because I was just tough. I was really tough to get along with because I was aggressive. I was like, really like not hard edged because that's not the right word, but I was a very prone to get in people's faces if they did things. So, this is where I got into punk. So I went there and I was into rap, really into rap. And when I say into rap, I wasn't into any of the gangster side of it. I just liked rap. I met this guy, Matt, and he was super into Metallica.
Did you ever write your own rap?
Yes, certainly.
Can you perform some of that for
Absolutely
us?
not. But I was definitely into writing my own rhymes at that time, and I'm totally not kidding.
Okay, so
We know you're not kidding.
So what I want people to imagine is if you're aware of what Aram looks like, Get that picture in your head. If you're not aware of what Aram looks like, don't Google Aram Arslanian because you'll see thick, lustrous hair. Look on the blog page for this, and you'll see pictures of him here talking to the microphone. Now, I want you to imagine him on the city bus with a notebook, writing his rap, writing his rhymes.
Didn't they make a movie about
Yes, I want you to basically
Yes.
imagine 8 Mile many, many years before. 8 Mile may have actually been inspired by Aram Arslanian.
So this is episode 10.
Yes.
How many other
probably
mentions
11.
of 8 Mile have there been up to this point?
I don't think any.
Because there's been
maybe one.
There's
I
been
think before
2
we
in this
talked-
one. There's been 2
Are you
mentions
sure?
already.
And I think we talked about 8 Mile leading into coming in here.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it played that big a role in your life.
Well, so
We probably saw the movie together.
it was in this school that I got into punk though, like really into punk.
Okay.
So-
I just want everyone to know that there was a time when Aram was writing his own rhymes
Mm-hmm.
and he thought he was going to be a rapper, and you probably performed those for people. Did you rap
No.
for anyone?
No.
No one
Certainly
ever heard
not.
you rap.
No one ever heard
It was
me
just
rap.
you in the mirror
Yes,
in the bathroom
probably.
with a brush.
I definitely had like, I would definitely rap to myself.
What was your rap name?
I can't remember, man.
You're just saying. You
I actually am just saying I totally remember, but I will not reveal that here. It was a ludicrous thing. Regardless, we'll go on to the next part. So
This is what we want.
I go to this school.
Okay, and this is where you get into punk,
I go into punk.
and
I
you
meet,
abandon your rap persona.
not entirely.
Okay.
I meet this guy named Matt Lutmer, and his brother Toby was older than us and had all these punk records. I got way more into thrash. I was really into like Metallica and like, DRI and that went on for quite a while, that I was much more into that kind of stuff because that was the skate rock connection, right? Because I'd already started getting into that stuff a bit when I was at my old school, but I got really, really into thrash. But the transition band for me was Agnostic Front, and Agnostic Front, game changer, still one of the best bands of all time. So by the end of grade 9, I was like bona fide into thrash, and then also, some punk and hardcore. And then after that, it was a very, very quick transition then into, proper hardcore and punk. And that was it. Never looked back.
So, how do you feel about rap now?
I can't believe anyone will be interested in listening to all this stuff about me, but how do I feel about rap now? I don't particularly like it now. I like early rap.
You still like all the stuff you loved.
I
when you were
like the
then.
stuff that I grew up on. When everyone now is like, oh my God, I feel like an old man saying this. But, in hardcore, a lot of people love rap and they have all these records that, I don't know what any of these bands sound like. I don't listen to it. What I listen to is old rap that I grew up on. And then I listen to like Agnostic Front. And then of course I listen to nice stuff like, Morrissey and the Smiths and everything.
But you listen to Judge.
Oh, Judge is like one of the greatest bands of all time. I'm saying I still listen to tons of hardcore. Like hardcore, I'm not like an older guy that listens to hardcore once in a while. I listen to hardcore every single day. I love hardcore. Incredible form of music. I love punk. I listen to it all the time.
And you're one of those guys that really loves Morrissey too.
And I love Morrissey. I love the Smiths. I love like, Low, and I like lots of stuff, but typically what I like is like very kind of dreary indie rock.
See, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that whole New Romantics thing at the beginning before your sister got those tapes, right?
Yeah.
That was making an impression on you, because it does make sense that you would dig Morrissey and the Smiths.
Oh
and
yeah.
whatnot.
I mean, I got into that stuff when I was in junior high. When I say rap was predominantly what I liked, but of course, any kid of that age liked the Smiths. It's what you heard all the time, and The Cure and all these bands.
Well, and I think this is kind of why the two of you clicked too, because every band he named is a band that you love, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, music has always been you guys' weird link.
Yeah, but all of that stuff, I mean, all of these experiences, it's what drove me into getting into counseling, getting my degree in psychology, doing like all of the type of work I did. It's all these like early experiences of feeling like pushed aside or rejected, and then having to find that way. And then as I got older, hardcore has always played the idea for me that anything I can do to make some other kid not have to feel how I felt, or kids that already feel that way, but give them a path. That has been like the majority of the stuff that I write is more about that kind of stuff. And it's what's led to my career now. And so, anyone can say like, oh, I'm thankful for everything that happened. But
and when you say your career now, you're not talking about your music career.
No.
You're talking about what you do for a living now, which we'll get to in a minute. But I want to ask something. You have talked about skateboarding. You talked about getting into rap, and then getting into thrash and hardcore and all that. And I'm assuming that you start skateboarding at 10 or 11 years old. All of this happens as you're becoming a teenager. When do you start drinking?
Mm-hmm. I started drinking, I think, pretty much when kids start drinking. I think I started drinking at like 13.
How were you getting it?
There were these really bad kids that lived down the street from my parents' house. I mean, they were like bad. Like I was always mischievous, but never like bad, you know? And they were animals. They're actual animals. And they didn't have parents that lived in their house. Their parents had a farm outside of Calgary. And they would spend half the time there and half the time in the city. And they would leave
leave the kids there.
13-year-old kids. No, they leave the 13-year-old kids in the city.
Oh.
Because their school was so close. And they had no supervision. It was insane. And so I would go to their house and they'd have alcohol. And then I did the thing. I stole some alcohol from my parents' house. But the really funny thing is I was very nervous about alcohol. And I was very nervous about smoking and all those things. And when I chose to dive headfirst into it, like I remember actually like making a choice, like, okay, I'm actually going to drink there, or I'm actually going to get drunk. It was a super weird thing. It had tons to do about just feeling like, oh, you know, like I feel on the outside everything. I feel rejected. Like if I do this thing, this is what all the kids are doing. Like, you know, this is how I will find my place there. And then, of course, it went to all the places where it went, right?
Yeah. But if you started at 13 and you stopped drinking and then became straight edge at 21, we're talking about 7 or 8 years of did you get into drugs too?
Mildly, like not problematically. And the interesting thing was, for the majority of the drinking, I'd say, it was pretty tame. Until it wasn't. It wasn't like a big increase over time. It was tame, and then bang, bad. But it was tame for quite a while. And then probably grade 11, it was when it started getting like bad, and it got bad really, really fast. And of course, that's when vehicles start coming into it.
Yeah, I mean, you're able to get around. You're able to get stuff more.
Yeah, and so it got pretty nuts.
And then we kind of know the story from there.
Yeah.
And you come from Calgary to Vancouver to go to school. Mm-hmm. And you're straight edge. Mm-hmm. You're coming down to the States all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I put you in Edge of Quarrel. Mm-hmm. You're one of the straight edge guys in the Rumble.
Yeah.
That's about when I meet you.
And then, not too long after that, okay, there is something between there. You form a hardcore band up in Vancouver.
Yeah. So I've been playing in hardcore bands in Calgary. And
you had been playing there. When did you start playing music?
I started playing music when I was 15. The first band that I ever played in was a band called All Rights Reserved.
Right.
And we started off trying to sound like 7 Seconds. Like we were like the worst version of 7 Seconds that's ever existed. But by our last demo, this is when things like, At Both Ends were like, I remember getting Stalemate and being really Undertow Stalemate and being really inspired by it. And then the Strain records were coming out. So by the end of it, we were trying to sound a bit like that. And we were a band for a while. I think we were a band for 3 years. And the first tour I ever did was with that band. We played Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland. And in Vancouver, we played with Indian Summer. And do you remember they were a big deal?
Oh, yeah.
We played with them in Vancouver, and then in Seattle, we played with Los Crudos, and I met Ron Gardapi at that show.
Nice.
And I bought At Both Ends from Damien on Blue. And then we played Portland with Jayhawker and Christopher Robin.
Wow.
In the basement?
Robin?
In the basement of the Powerhouse.
Oh, yes. I was at that show.
That's where I bought the Jayhawker demo off of them, and I met Bill Baker at that show.
Oh,
him and all of their friends were wearing short pants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were cutting off all the.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, so
wow.
I am either at that show.
No, you were not at that show.
Or the pictures have seared into my memory, and I think I was at that show from the photos that I got.
I have photos from that show.
Oh, we have to find them.
I have photos of me at that show with a full head of hair wearing a Gorilla Biscuit shirt.
Oh my God.
Wait, so you were in that? I
think so.
In Powerhouse in Portland?
Yeah, we would go down for shows. I mean, Christopher Robin.
Yeah.
This might jog your memory. This is where I became first aware of the term freegan.
I first heard the term freegan because there was that little place that sold like
absolutely.
$1 cup. There was a dollar store like a block and a half from the powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
And they said freegan there.
Yeah. Well, this dude.
Well, people would say freegan because they'd get.
And then I believe you used it later. You actually practiced it.
I never practiced.
No?
This is the thing, though.
No?
It didn't make sense to the store because they'd buy stuff at the store, but then if someone bought it and gave it to you, it was freegan.
Yeah, because I hate posers, and I've always hated posers. And I will tell you, the first time a dude said freegan to me, I called him a poser. And check this out. I'll tell you the exact story.
Explain what a freegan is in case there's someone listening and doesn't know what we're talking about.
I think the modern definition of freegan has changed as is wont to happen. But at the time, what it was that you were vegan unless it was free.
Right.
And the idea being you didn't let things go to waste. This is some bullshit. So I'm vegan, and like if someone was like, "Oh, this meat's going to go to waste," I'll be like, "Well, you shouldn't have killed that animal." I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'm going to eat this delicious thing." Fuck that. However, we're at this thing. Dude, there's so many things from this tour. It would take 3 hours to tell. We are these essentially hicks from Calgary. And we're just like, "Oh, what? Heck, what is this stuff?" Like, we're playing this show in a basement. And in Calgary, we're used to playing like big shows with like in venues with stages and sound because punk bands in Calgary did really, really well. So we're playing this basement and we're psyched. We're like, "Oh, this is really cool." They had a potluck, a vegan potluck at the thing. Yep. And we were like, okay. And then there was
because they did food not bombs out of there, I believe.
There was a huge scandal because someone brought a dish with meat. And we all ate meat at the time, and we were like, what are these wimps freaking out about? And people were like literally like, "Oh my God, can you believe like Steve brought something with meat?" And then one of these dudes who had said something to me about veganism or whatever sits down with this like casserole and is just like chomping away. And I was like, "Oh, dude, I heard that had meat in it." He's like, "Yeah, I'm freegan." And I was like, "What is that?" He tells me, and I was like, "Yo, man, you're a poser."
Do you remember who it was?
I believe it might have been someone from Christopher Robin or someone who was associated with their crew. I think it was someone who came and played trumpet during one of their songs.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Legit. And I might be wrong about that, but I legit called whoever it was a poser right to their face. And I'm going to tell you something. This is like young Aram who would get in anyone's face about anything. Yeah. And not that I cared about veganism at all, but I hated posers. I always hated posers. Like, "Oh, this dude's a poser."
Because you were that dude. You got in fights at school.
Right. And when I told him that, he was like, but like, yo.
Let me tell you something, dude. There may have been a conversation about whether or not you needed to be kicked out of the powerhouse because you were making an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will also tell you,
I have been in those conversations in the powerhouse in the past.
Dude, I will also say that we stayed at the Goat House, and that's where I met
weird.
I met from the dude from the Murder City Devils.
Dan?
Dan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no, who's the dude with the devil's tattooed on his throat?
Dan Gallucci.
Dan. Okay, I met him. Player. Yeah, I met him at the Goat House, and he was super cool, really great. We stayed at the Goat House for a long time because we had a lot of space between our shows, and we definitely outstayed our welcome, certainly. And Yara played there, and we were really into Downcast. And then I remember meeting them and being like, "Oh, these dudes are turds." Like, it was weird because like we met these people, and we weren't out of like kind of rock star thinking like, "Oh, if you put a record out, you're a big band." You know, we were just too isolated to get that thinking. So we'd meet these people and I'd be like, holy crap. Like when I met Ron Gardapi, I was like, "Oh my God, it's Ron from Brotherhood. This is insane." And he was totally cool, just super down to earth. And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then I met the singer of Struggle. I met the singer of Struggle, and I really like Struggle. And I met the dude from Struggle. I was like, this dude looks like Cookie Monster. Like, what is up with this? And then like I met all these dudes and was like, it was just confusing because I was a real black and white thinker about people. And this had a lot to do with, again, like, in punk and skateboarding and all those things, I needed clear role models of like, these are what good people look like. So I would always put that on other people. And it wasn't until I was way older that I realized, these are just normal people just like you, right? But yeah, it was a funny thing. So I met Bill Baker and all those guys during that time.
Nice.
And they were all wearing short pants, like every one of them.
Oh yeah, Bill would wear overalls cut to short pants.
Yeah, I remember everyone wearing corduroy pants, and they were all cut short, and literally being like, these people all look like Steve Urkel, like they, and like you got to keep in mind, we were like dudes who were used to getting in fights, like so we were just like, what is with these people?
How come no one's beating them?
It was weird, man. It was weird. So that was my first tour.
Anyways, and so you're like, I gotta go back to that place.
Well, fast forward years later, moved to Vancouver, like many, many years later.
Well, then you and I just didn't run into each other on that the whole time.
Yeah. So we just satellited each other, all of us, actually.
Totally.
Yeah. I still have my Jayhawker tape, which Jayhawker's like that demo is unbelievable, and it's criminal they haven't let that been released properly because it's unbelievable. But Jayhawker was also a big influence in the way I played hardcore, getting a little heavier and a little bit more musical, because they were good musicians too, and we were terrible musicians.
How did you learn to play music?
I just picked up a guitar. We started a band. Because that's what you did.
And it was guitar, not bass.
No, it was bass.
You started playing bass.
I started playing bass. Anyway, so move out to Vancouver years later. I started a youth crew band called Face Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We were terrible.
I'll argue that.
Well, it was something. It was something. We'll say that. It was in Face Tomorrow. Before Face Tomorrow, though, the second proper tour I ever went on was with Trial. They took me on a West Coast tour as a roadie, and they taught me how to be in a touring band. And I can say there are things that I still do today that were learned on that Trial tour of how to properly be in a band. And they were great. It was an incredible experience. And then I started my youth crew band. We were awful. And we did a full U.S. tour on a demo tape, 6-week U.S. tour on a demo tape. Because for any of you who don't know me, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do that thing, no matter what it is.
Oh, it's so true.
So if I'm like, I'm going to climb that mountain, I'm going to climb that mountain. But if I'm going to go on a U.S. tour, I will go on a U.S. tour, even if I'm playing a cardboard banjo. This is what I'm going to do. So we go on the 6-week U.S. tour. It was awesome and terrible, and we did a lot of cool things. We got to play with In My Eyes in Boston. We did a bunch of shows with Bane, and they were very kind. They really took care of us. And I met a ton of people that I would go on to become very good friends with when I was in Champion. Finish that tour, come home. Trial's broken up. Champion is playing. Tim Mack asked me to join Champion. We're off to the races.
Yeah,
I can
you
remember
told me
that. Yeah.
I'm going to play. Was it bass?
Bass.
Yeah.
I'm going to play bass in Champion.
You were so excited.
Actually, I wasn't, and I'm going to tell you why.
No, you were.
I was excited to play in a band that people cared about,
Yeah.
because no one ever cared about any band I played in. But I didn't think...
I felt strangely wary of this situation.
Yes.
And I voiced it to you. Are you sure that's a good idea?
Yes. I wasn't a big fan of the band. I was a fan of the people in the band, but I wasn't a fan of the band. But yeah, it all worked out.
Well, and
But I think that's
Champion,
why you were excited, though.
Yes.
The thing is, you came in at a great time, because Champion definitely became something. I mean, that was you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I feel like I lived.
Eric Markley once said, "It takes a Canadian to make Champion a good band."
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah, all the elements were there.
Or it took a Canadian to make Champion a good band.
All the elements were there.
And that right about that time, Stay Gold was on the rise,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys became this awesome, like, friends/rivals band thing, which forced both bands to basically get better and better.
No, that was only on their side. We were never in a rivalry with them. And by the way, I love Stay Gold, put out their first record. I consider those dudes friends, like no issue, but I never felt rivalry towards them, because I put out their record and I helped get them on a lot of our tours and
now,
stuff.
you know, we shape history a little bit on this show, right? Because we're the only ones that know what happened, right? So this is a little bit of history revisionism.
Right.
There's no way to avoid that. And I'm going to tell you that Champion and Stay Gold were sort of Hosoi versus Tony Hawk of the hardcore scene in the Northwest. Like, you know, Hawk could go, or Hosoi could fly higher, but Hawk had the technical abilities, you know, and it was every competition you didn't know who was going to eke out the win.
I don't know about that, because I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I believe everyone in Stay Gold was a tenfold better musician than anyone in Champion, except for Todd, the pre-boss, who's an incredible, like a really good drummer. But those guys are really good musicians. And I seriously, like, I just punch guitars. Like, I don't have a very much, I can play basic hardcore. They're a band that I think could have and should have been a way bigger than they were. It was just the way things unfolded. But the thing, there was not a rivalry.
But you're talking about what they became.
Right.
And I'm talking about while you both those bands were rising.
But here's a pivotal thing to remember. And I will say, Chad, who is the singer of Stay Gold, was Jim's best friend. So he wasn't competitive with his best friend. Posy Chris, there's not a competitive bone in his body. He's just a lovely person, and he would want everyone else to be.
Well, I think you're automatically assuming that that's a negative thing.
No. Oh no. Let me explain something. Because we were seen as having a competitive thing, but Champion was really not competitive with Stay Gold. And this is an important point for me, because especially me, I am not competitive with people, but I'm incredibly competitive with myself. That is a true trait of myself, but I'm never competitive against other people. I want other people to do well. So the two bands, I think, existed in great harmony because of that for the most part. And we did a lot of cool stuff together, and they're a very, very cool band and an important chapter of the Northwest hardcore story.
But do you mean that they pushed each other to become better
Absolutely.
bands? Because I think that's what you were trying to say. Because that's exactly how I remember
Because
it.
No one wants to. When you guys would play a show together, you play Ground Zero or something, right? And you wouldn't be like, I hope we play second best tonight.
No, we were great peers. We definitely, as they upped their game, we upped our game.
But I think that's what he means by rivalry. It's not really a rivalry. It's more it's not a competition. It's more like playing darts with each other.
It wasn't that you wanted the other one to lose.
Yeah.
You just wanted to win. And those aren't always totally different
and you guys
things.
played off each other, because sometimes you opened and sometimes they opened.
I like the version, Michaelanne, that you're telling better than the one. Dave is phrasing it in a way where it's like, I don't think of things like winning versus like, I just don't think that way.
No, but we joke around that way though. And
However,
there was a lot of joking around back then, and in a way that if you were looking at it from the outside, you could have seen it as those guys are rivals or something, perhaps.
That was a very special time for me, though.
So I only use those words because it's just, there's a lot of different ways we can say it.
Oh, totally.
I like the analogy, the comparing it to the Hosoi Hawk thing, because it's not like those guys were enemies.
Yeah.
Other people would pick sides. People looking in on it would pick sides, and they'd say, oh, it sucks, or whatever. But come on, everybody benefited by both of those guys getting great. Everybody benefited by Champion and Stay Gold becoming relevant bands that started up this whole new era of Northwest hardcore, restarted it.
Yeah.
Well, and made it new and fresh. I mean, I'm not a hardcore girl. I don't really like hardcore. Everything I know about hardcore,
be careful what you say.
I learned from you too. I mean, almost exclusively, really. That's the only reason I know most of it. I mean, yeah, Minor Threat, whatever. I mean, there was stuff that I was introduced to and that I do like, but seriously, it was Champion and me being able to I feel like I lived that. I totally did to some degree. And hell, I even saw you play in Europe.
Yeah, that's
on
right.
A boat.
That's right.
On the River Seine. That was strange.
That song on a boat was about us.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's a real song.
Yeah.
It is.
It's experiential. It's a lived experience.
No,
but
I say it's a real song because I think once you were scolded in the past that it wasn't a real song and you should stop singing it.
Jim, when we played on a boat, Jim definitely yelled, "Sink this ship" during the breakdown. And kids moshed so hard that you could see like the ship would go like this, and water, the little portal, so you'd see like the water.
It was scary, actually.
It was pretty hard moshing.
It was a little scary, actually.
It was Paris. This was in Paris, and man,
and the punks
furious.
over there, they're nuts.
Yeah,
They
throw beer, I hear.
That was at a Rocket from the Crypt show, but whatever.
The
but they still do.
France.
They did there too. Yeah.
The punks in France were no joke at that time. That show was totally sick,
and it was a little scary. There were a couple of scary guys there.
Ship. Yeah. Sink this ship.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who put on the show, his name is Philippe, and he is a skinhead, a straight edge skinhead from Paris. He's still around, still straight edge, still doing stuff, and he has a sham 69 tattoo on his throat. As one does.
I remember this guy.
As one does.
How would you forget that?
And when he came out, he walked out of the ship, and it was a cold, rainy day. He was wearing a pea coat, and he walked out a solitary figure, and everyone in the van looked at me and said, "Go talk to him." I was like, "Why do I have to talk with him?" They're like, "Well, you're like the guy, man. You do this." And I went out there with Michaelanne. The two of us walked out, and I was like,
he was
"Hello." hello, I'm the champion. And he was like, I won't even do a French accent.
No.
But he was like, oh, awesome. And he was the nicest guy.
Yeah, he
and
was
took
so
care of
So
me.
you
nice.
translated Michaelanne?
He and I spoke a little bit better than, well, his English was quite good. So he and I did speak a little bit, but I didn't really need to. But there was a couple of times where there was like some questions about
I was just hoping you would give us some French, like an example of a French sentence you might have said to him.
why would you,
That a skinhead, a French skinhead.
why would
said.
you make me do that? No.
I will say,
I always try to get Michaelanne to speak French around me. She won't do it.
like, I know
She
we're,
speaks fluent French and she won't speak French in front of me.
at this point, we're very far off topic, but I'll say, like,
What topic?
I'll say, like, this show was totally insane. Like, Philippe,
really was.
Philippe did such a great job. He was always just such a gracious, really great guy. And I met friends, like my friend Nico, who I'm still friends with now years later. There was, and maybe still is, a very rich skinhead scene in Paris, where it was just like really rich with tradition and history and wonderful people. And so there was a band called Hard Times, another one called Last Quiet Time. Apparently, they like to talk about
Now,
time a lot.
I always feel like whenever skinheads get mentioned, because most people who listen to this podcast are going to know what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
but the concept of skinhead of a racist skinhead is a tiny fraction of actual skinheads.
Well, those aren't real skinheads.
Those aren't
Like,
real skinheads.
No.
No.
Real skinheads are like, anti-racist, anti-oppression, all those things.
And there's still a lot of them. in
working
France.
class
Yeah.
dudes.
Yeah, and this, it was just a great time. But playing on a ship, it was one of many ships we ended up playing. But it was the first time we ever played on a boat, and
It was surreal.
It was totally surreal.
How many boats have you played on?
Like multiple, I have no idea. I will tell you.
So many you've lost count.
Yeah, but it's not like I think it's no more than 5, but it might be. I mean, it's been a while. I will say that we played on a ferry in Gothenburg, where the city that In Flames is from. And this is when it was like our second European tour. I had my wireless. Chris and I started playing wirelesses, which may sound corny and actually may be corny. I'm not sure, but it was dope because we could do a lot of cool stuff.
A lot of cool stage moves.
Well, here's the thing. The show had been well attended, but we had missed, for whatever reason, we showed up hours late. And so 3/4 of the kids had left. So there was only like 30 kids left at the show, but they stuck around for hours to see us. And I ran through the crowd with my wireless because we're playing on the floor. I ran through the crowd to the back of the venue, and it was all hardwood floors, and then ran back at the crowd. They didn't know which direction they should be facing. Should they face the band or should they face this idiot who's just ran away from them? And I came running back and did a flying jump onto my knees and slid through the crowd playing guitar like Marty McFly, but the crotch of my pants burst open at the same time. So I was slid through the crowd playing guitar, not doing a solo because I can't play solos, but through the crowd playing guitar with my burst open crotch, like both delighted and horrified at the same time.
Were you tackle out?
No. Everything stayed where it should have been. And as I came, I slid through, I landed at the feet of Posy Chris, the other guitar player champion, who looked down at me and just gave me the most Posy Chris nod, like, good work, son.
Well done.
Well played.
I can
Nice,
so
proud of
imagine it.
Yeah, it was very funny. So we played on
And that was on a
many
boat.
boats. Yeah, we played on many boats.
Yeah. You went on tour with Champion.
I did.
Yeah, you went on tour.
2003.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
that
that's
was-
jumping
Hellfest
forward a
and
little
Posy
bit.
numbers.
yeah, you saw some stuff, man, that
I
summer.
did see some stuff. That was cool. Okay, so I went on a short, 2-week thing out to the East Coast with you guys.
No, that was a full US tour.
I wasn't on the full thing though.
Or maybe it was a 2-week tour.
Yeah.
Just out to the East Coast and back.
And it was we drove straight out to Minneapolis
Oh yeah.
and then went from there.
Did we have one of our pool parties out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
We started the pool party.
Blood.
Wait, that's right. Someone got hurt. And
Pacey got hurt.
Pacey got hurt, and whoever's house we were staying
Rachel.
at, her father called him Blood, right?
Yeah, Rachel, who I'm still friends with, and
very
may listen to this if you're listening, Rachel. Hello.
Nice. I talked about that house actually on the Rocky episode, which is episode 2 of this podcast, because when I went to go get rubber bands for the shirts, I got in Rachel's friend's car, and she turned on her car, and Rocky Vodolata was playing.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
And so I was, like I said, I tried to be really cool about it as I was like, this is my good friend Rocky. So no, that was good. So how did Betrayed come about?
So I was playing in Champion, and it's interesting. So Jim and I, the singer of Champion, we did not get along when we were Champion, for a variety of reasons, right?
I remember.
Well,
Very well.
Not so much now, but definitely when I was younger, and we've talked about this a few times, I was way more in your face. But part of why I've been able to do a lot of stuff in life is because I'm a hard worker. I believe in hard work. I believe in setting goals and getting them done and driving really hard. And it's just part of my nature of who I am. And Jim is the same way in a lot of ways. It's just that we would find each other, we would just end up like butting heads a lot. And now it's funny because Jim lives in Canada, and that's funny for a variety of reasons.
It is so true.
Jim is one of my best friends, and we spend tons of time together. So,
And you're in a band together again.
we're in a band together again. But towards around when Betrayed started, I was feeling really burnt out on Champion because we've been touring a ton and doing a lot of stuff. And being in a lot of conflict with Jim often was getting tough for both of us. Not, because any issue we had was equally my fault for sure. Like we were both tough on each other. So Betrayed was cool because it seemed like this idealized situation. Todd Jones, who I was good friends with, am still good friends with. He is just an incredible musician, and we were good friends from when he was in Carry On. And I can't remember whose idea it was. We said, hey, let's do something. And then he sent me some songs, and it just happened really, really fast. And we just put out this record, and everyone loved it, and everyone freaked out, and it was great. And it was cool because Champion was at our peak when that record came out. And there was still a lot of life left in Champion, but I also had this other thing, and that other thing relieved a lot of the Champion pressure on me because I had this other thing that I could just put a lot of energy and passion into. And so that was cool. And that went on for a while, and then it went how things go. And
is it done?
No. I wouldn't. I don't think
so.
we'll.
It's not active, but it exists.
In
the realm of the possible.
I don't think Betrayed will ever not be a band, but I also don't know if we'll ever play a show again. So I think it's more at the point now where we put out a record a few years ago, and it's a cool record. I'm real happy with it. And then Todd's in Nails, and Todd has 2 kids and a serious family life, and he's a really hard worker. So whatever he's focusing on is his main focus. So of course he's focused on his family. And then Nails is just, I believe, one of the most important, incredible bands that exists. So he's focused on that. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if Betrayed played a show or played a few shows or put out a record. And I also wouldn't be surprised if we never did anything again. So, okay. But I certainly don't think we're like broken up. I wouldn't say that.
Okay. So anything can happen.
Yeah.
All right. Give a fairly quick overview of how React Records came about, why you did it, and what basically was what went on with that label.
So my friend Bubs, Kyle DeVille, was in a band called Get the Most, loved the 7-inch, and they had a demo that was unreleased. And just on a whim, I said, yo, Bubs, let me put out the record. And he was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, Aram. Why don't you put out that record?
That's a fantastic Bubs.
We're leaving that in.
Oh yeah, no, I'll talk as I will do my Bubs impersonation anytime.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
That's all there is. He doesn't say anything. He just says, oh, hey, oh.
No, he says a lot of stuff. Bubs is a very, very smart guy. He talks like this. Hey.
And this is your second label. You had a label called Anchor Records.
Yeah.
You put out a number of things.
Put out some things. Anchor was a real cool record label, but I just didn't have time to do it because it's when Champion started doing all that stuff. So this is React is post-Champion. And just on a whim, I was like, yo, Bubs, I'll put out your record. Put it out, sold out in like 3 days. Press 500 sold out in 3 days. And I was like, well, that's cool. And the whole idea was to just put out one-time pressings of bands I thought were interesting. And it very quickly couldn't be that anymore because Mindset was the band that changed that because they were the 3rd release and they started touring and doing stuff, and I had to repress their record. And suddenly there was all these bands and all these people interested about the record label, and it started legitimately on a whim because I wanted to do something fun with Bubs, and Oli, who was in Get the Most, is like one of my very good friends, and so it was just fun doing stuff with them. And it turned into this thing. So one release turned into another. The next thing I knew, well, we were doing the label from your guys' house, in the living room or in the bro zone.
I kind of feel like React was part mine.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, it was amazing.
It's true. It was so interesting to, when I met Dave, there was Excursion and you were doing it, but it was so small really compared to what you did. I mean, to see those, when UPS or whatever would come to my house with these just giant amounts of boxes stuffed on the front door on the front porch, and you'd be like on the phone, like, open one, like take it out and listen to it and like tell me, does it sound good? It was so weird to like live through that. So
I was trying to explain it to someone recently, someone who's like a total civilian, not part of hardcore at all.
Total civvy.
And they were like, you've done a lot of stuff. Is it weird for you to not do stuff now? And I was like, absolutely not, because I'm going to tell you, when you're in the mix and someone delivers, and you're playing in like a punk band or you have an indie label and someone delivers 3,000 records at your doorstep or your friend's doorstep, it comes with the recognition that you yourself are assembling those 3,000 records yourself with whoever you can con into doing
literally.
it.
With a crew that you've
And how many times were we sitting in there watching some movie, like stuffing some,
totally.
liner in there?
So, the label got big fast, did tons of stuff. And, when it was at its peak, we had our own space. We had a master bedroom in a house that was like, had proper shelving, lined with t-shirts, lined with stuff.
it was quite the operation.
Yeah, I had 4 paid staff, I guess you'd say, but I paid them every month. And they all worked part-time for the label, and it was great. It was incredible, and it was such a cool time again. It was a different time, so it's long after Champion State Gold. It was like a resurgence from then, right? And Get the Most was doing stuff, and the scene wasn't big, but it was super creative. And React was awesome. I'd say it was the last time that I could fully put everything I had into music. I was working as a counselor at the time, but every penny I had went into React. It was cool. Mm-hmm. And then I eventually, moved it over to Evan.
So React still exists.
React exists. Evan Wevel is now the label owner. He's the singer of Mindset. React was way too cool to end, but I didn't want to keep doing it anymore. It was and is, I think, one of the most just awesome record labels. And Evan and I
Well, you would tell me I'm going to stop doing React. Mm-hmm. And I would always react badly to that.
You would react badly?
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would, yeah.
And you threatened a lot. Like,
wow,
you did.
Who did I threaten?
To yourself. Like, I'm going to quit this. I can't keep doing this record.
I think I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah,
I'd be
this
like,
is the
dude,
last
you can't
release.
Stop doing it.
And then like, you'd be like, no, well, I got well, maybe the next thing.
Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, you make it threaten like I was like, oh, you kids, I'm going to take away your toys. It's like, you got to think about it. I was doing a master's degree.
You were just so overloaded. I don't know how you did it. I have no idea.
I was working full-time as a counselor, so like all week I was hearing just gnarly stories. I was doing my master's degree at the time. I was living in Canada and driving down every weekend to pack mail order.
Right. It's touring the band with the cardboard banjo that you mentioned before. I think your thinking was if you couldn't maintain the current level of intensity, it should not exist.
Right.
Rather than exist at a lesser level.
And you thought for a long time that you couldn't maintain it, but yet somehow you kept doing it.
Right. And that's like, that is me as a human being, that whatever I do full bore. I do it in a way that I see as being really an honest pursuit, where it's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put all of my the wind into it that I can. All of the wind will be in the sails, and I don't do things half-assed ever. And that's why it's hard for me to do anything just casually. So
you put your whole heart into everything.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of things casually.
So you mentioned at this time when you had too much stuff going on, you were a counselor.
Yeah.
Tell people about, this is your other life. This is the life that people maybe don't know as much about, like what you do what you were doing at the time for a living.
Well, little known, or I don't know, maybe people might know this. Before Champion went like full time, quote unquote full time, I finished school and I went and did a English degree and a psych degree. And so one of the coolest things was that I actually had a job before I left my full-time counseling job to go be in a punk band. And I was in a neat position that I think a lot of people don't get to be in, where I wasn't freaked out about what would happen when the band broke up, because I would just go back to being a counselor. So Champion went and did its thing, and then I came back and I was a drug and alcohol and mental health counselor. So I worked with, pretty serious stuff all the time. And then when I was doing React, I wanted to move up in the counseling world and take on more serious roles. So I was doing my master's at the time, and I finished React right as I left counseling. So I'd been a counselor for 10 years, and then I moved into a new role in the private sector. And now essentially I'm like a counselor for companies. I go in and it's not therapy, but I do what's known as executive coaching, and I do very high level executive coaching. Typically I work with only senior executives, and very often it's people in the C-suite, and very often it's people who are CEOs of major companies in North America, and I act as an advisor and a leadership guide for them.
Now, people who've seen your bands play, and particularly Betrayed, but this would happen with Champions sometimes too. They've heard you talk to the crowd. Sometimes you'd have something to say. You'd want to get a message across that wasn't just in the lyrics or in the music. Am I correct in thinking that it was that made the people that hired you into this job aware of you?
No, not
at all. So they're unaware of that.
They're
world.
Totally unaware.
So, okay, I was under the impression that, because I mean, when you would speak to the crowd, like at Gilman, when you did, like at the React Festival or the React Showcase.
Thank you.
You bet. I know that it was not a festival; it's a showcase. Most people do not effectively speak to a crowd that way. You always were good at having a point and making it all make sense, and it didn't ramble.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of assumed you transitioned from that into.
I was walking my dog, and I ran into a couple who also had a wiener dog. Yeah. And our dog started playing. The guy asked me what I do. The husband of the couple asked me what I do, and I said I'm a counselor. And he said, "Hey, I've got this company, blah, 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 blah.
Oh.
You should come work for me." And I said, "No, I'm not interested in working in the corporate world." And he pursued me from there. He didn't even know I had played in a punk band. And when he knew and started knowing about the tattoos and stuff, it became more of a like, well, I don't know about this guy. But then I went in and did what I do. And now I'm one of the leaders of the company. So I'm a vice president in the company, and I run, a huge portion of the company. I have like 2 offices under me, a bunch of staff reporting up, and we're just continuing to make the company grow. And it's cool. It's really neat. If you'd asked me 5 or 6 years ago if I'd wear a suit 5 days a week, I would have laughed my ass off. I have found
it's so funny to see you in a suit.
Well, I found
it looks normal now to me because you've done it for a while, but at first, oh my, it was so strange.
Well, I found like a real joy in this job, in the sense of, of course, when you're young coming up, you've got black and white thinking about the business world. And it's just like, the business world is full of, just like anything, the business world is full of really great people, and then some neutral people, and then some people that aren't great. And my job, the fundamental core of my job is, you got to think about it this way. We've all had bosses where we're like, how can that exist? Like, how can someone treat people like that?
Oh, yes.
And my job is 2 things. One, it's to help people who are really great leaders become even better, like get even stronger. And then another part of my job is working with people who are really tough, really difficult to work for, and helping them find their way out of that. And it's very cool. I get to work with all sorts of wonderful, super smart people who do really good things. And I get to work with some people who've got some challenges and are working to get out of that. And it's awesome. What I do every day, I can definitely say, helps people and changes people's worlds significantly. And it's good. It's a good feeling. But it's not something I even knew existed, nor something I expected.
But do you feel that you draw from your experience in hardcore?
Oh, 100%.
In that job?
100%. What I do is 70% hardcore and 30% like my educational background, because it's like about street smarts, knowing people, understanding people, and you get that from punk. And you would be surprised how many people grew up in the punk scene that are in the corporate world. I had a guy just the other day telling me about how when he was a kid, he went to those Clash shows in New York.
Nice.
Yeah. That that 7-day stint that they did.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he was telling me about meeting Joe Strummer and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool, man."
But do you think that if you were 10 years older, like, and you were trying to get into this world 10 years ago, do you think that you would have been able to with your tattoos?
No way. I wouldn't have been able to with my tattoos or my attitude.
Yeah. Isn't that weird how time changes?
Oh, totally. The tattoos now in the corporate world, people are like, "Oh, that's cool. That's so neat."
Yeah, it just floors me to think back, to 10, 15, 20 years ago, and what we were involved in the lifestyle was so taboo to so many people. But now I don't know, have we all mellowed out, or has
Well,
the
if they
world?
were all tribal tattoos, it maybe
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
be.
that's
that's
true.
right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like when I work with companies now, a huge part of why they come to me is because of my background. So for example, if you could go anywhere, you could find a ton of coaches who have like an MBA, they used to run a company and any of these things. You're not going to find a ton of coaches who are executive coaches who worked in the field of psychology and played in a punk band and are covered in tattoos and grew up skateboarding. These aren't like dime a dozen things. So,
And do you remember people used to say that, because you picked up a skateboard that
you're screwed.
Your life was
You're
going to amount to nothing.
Or if you get tattoos, you're screwed. Or like you're playing. I remember like, I left a professional career to play in a punk band and my dad being like, this is a terrible idea. And it's like now he'll say, you have this job because you played in those
Isn't it
bands.
The
weird?
story over and over again is that people don't know what they're talking about when they tell you what your choices now are going to mean for you later.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
There's no one has a crystal ball and is looking ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, they can definitely tell you, hey, if you continue down this road doing drugs, you're going to screw up your life. We all see the writing on the wall with that.
Right.
But like, yeah, I mean, even neck tattoos are something that I don't think it's the best idea, but I mean, it's not going to keep someone from getting a job if that person is effective. If that person has an interesting story and they're together and they've got some interesting tattoos, it just makes people go, "Ooh, what's up with them?"
Yeah, totally. All that stuff is like whatever. But my job is cool. Love it. It's neat.
And with the level that you've risen to with that job, one might think that, well, that's what Aram did. He did hardcore for a while. Then he did the record label, and now he's got this job and he's wearing a suit, and that's it. That's the end of the story. But what's going on with you in hardcore?
Well, right now I'm playing in True Identity. We're literally recording this weekend, and we're going to be putting out a demo, and we're playing Rainfest, and then we're also recording our full length for React this August, and then we'll be touring on it next year. So I'm still playing. And by the way, True Identity, straight up. Straight edge band, not embarrassed of it. It's like, we're a straight edge band, we're into youth of today, and that's our vibe. And we're also a vegetarian band, and we're super passionate about it. We sing about it. People can say that's corny, and I would say, awesome. Like, then if you're not into that, then you already know what the band's about, because that's exactly it. That's what we're doing. And I've never, and I'm going again to say this, I know a ton of people, and the three of us know a lot of people who started in hardcore and who have progressed onto other things. And that's amazing. A lot of bands of people that we know, they started as like very simple hardcore bands and have gone on to do incredible music. And I'm super appreciative of that. And I also think it's totally fine to not progress musically and just to know what you like to play and what you can play and to stay in that pocket. And I never feel weird about playing essentially the same kind of music that I've always played because I love it and I'm totally psyched on it. So I've got that going on.
It's like you can hear honesty.
Yeah, it's just what I'm into. And if I tried to write something else, I would be aping it because it's just not what I do. I play straight edge hardcore, fast straight edge hardcore. It's just what I'm into. And then I'm also playing at Keep It Clear, which is a band that sounds kind of like Agnostic Front meets Right Brigade. And I'm working on a project with some other dudes out east, and another straight edge thing. So I'm playing in like 3 straight edge bands right now, and they're one's in Vancouver, well 2 are in Vancouver, and then one's out on the East Coast.
That's okay. I guess that's the point. Like it seemed like it almost sounded like the story was coming to an end, but it's not coming to an end at all.
Absolutely not. That's part of what True Identity is about, and I'd say this is something that I feel is true about the Northwest, and it's true about the 3 of us sitting here, and it's true about our group of friends. The Northwest is an area kind of like jutted up in a space where not a lot of bands go, and we're a group of people that to have stuff here, you got to create it yourself. Mm-hmm. And so like when I think of what Ron did, when we talk about all the stuff that Ron did in that episode, it's like him and Greg created that stuff. The Undertow guys created stuff. We created stuff. Like we've all built from these things. That doesn't end for me. And I don't think it ends for a lot of people. So True Identity, the idea about True Identity is that we would not still be doing this stuff if it wasn't who we really are. And of course, everyone kind of follows trends. It's just a normal thing. But I really don't believe that anyone from our scene like really gets swayed too much from what we're about. We're really into what we're into. We create ideas and music and art based on those things, and we totally stand by it. And it's not just 2 years later or 5 years later, like literally 20 years later. And the stuff doesn't suck. It's good. It's interesting. So, and people care about it. So for me, when I think of True Identity, we have a song called True Identity that's very specifically about this region, these people, and what we're about. And there's no reason for it to change.
Well, I'm not quite going to let you go. I want to talk about a couple of controversial opinions, and I want to tell a story that I forgot.
Okay.
When we were talking about your youth, one of the things that we have in common, like so many people our age, is a love of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was so influential in our lives.
Yes.
However, you are a number of years younger than I am. You are 4 years younger than me?
I'm 40 now, so how old are you?
44.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes.
I had to look at Michaelanne for
44.
I am 44. So, I saw Star Wars in the theater when it was first out when I was 6.
Mm-hmm.
So you were very young. You
Yes.
came to Star Wars a little bit later.
No, I saw it in the theater. I just don't remember it.
But you then were aware of Star Wars. You had your Star Wars toys. You knew who Han Solo was for sure, and you knew he was your favorite.
Yes.
Will you tell the story of going to see Empire Strikes Back, how old you were, and what happened?
I was 6 years old. So just to be clear, I was 3 when Star Wars came out, and 6 when Empire Strikes Back came out, and 9 when Return of the Jedi came out. I saw Star Wars in the theater, but I don't remember it because I was 3. But I grew up. There's never a moment in my life growing up where I did not know what Star Wars was.
Right, because, I mean, I was born in 76, and for my whole life, Star Wars was it was there.
Yeah, it's what you knew about.
I remember it from my early years, yep.
Han Solo, my favorite, 100%. So when I was a kid, there wasn't like multiplexes. There weren't movie theaters where there was like tons of different screens. And if you wanted to go see a movie and it was a popular movie, you got there early and you stood in line. And sometimes you'd have to stand in line for an entire movie until they let in the next movie.
Yes.
Because you couldn't order tickets online or any of this stuff. So.
We're old.
Oh, yeah. Empire Strikes Back comes out. And my parents take us to go stand in line to go see it. The first time we go, the movie is sold out. Like, we're standing in line forever. And then the movie's sold out. And the manager comes out and says, sorry, everyone, there's no more showing. We're not going to show it any more times tonight. So we have to go home. The second time, we go dead early, stand in line forever. We get tickets. I'm psyched. We go in. Now, again, you don't know what's going to happen in this movie. It's the first time you're going to see it. Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite.
Which is, you've been through most of the movie.
Yeah, most of the movie.
Okay.
Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite, and I lose my absolute mind. I am screaming and crying, and my parents are like, you need to calm down. And I literally can't cope. I'm losing my mind. And we had to leave.
It hurt your brain to the point where, like, this is an emotional reaction, like this was a member of your family.
The brain had nothing to do with it. It hurt my heart. It hurt my essence of my soul.
And people in the theater now can't hear what's happening in the movie.
No. Like, people around us are like,
So you're
shut
hysterical.
that kid up. Oh, no, I was hysterical. That's
Yeah.
the way to say it. I absolutely lost my mind. My poor parents, we had to leave
Oh, no.
this movie that they stood in line for now twice.
Yeah.
They take me back a third time to see this. We stand in line again for hours. And there's something that I recall really clearly about this. There was a kid in line behind us who had a Luke Skywalker figure. And if you remember these old Star Wars toys, the heads were like pretty smooth. And he stuffed the head of Luke Skywalker up his own nose.
Sure.
I'll never forget seeing that.
Okay.
Anyways.
So you kind of thought, all right, I'm ready to see some stuff now. And had your parents had a talk with you about going back?
So we're in line and they're like, so, you understand this is going to happen. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. We go in, the whole movie, I've got super high anxiety. The part comes and I start freaking out again. And I'm like, my mom's like, you gotta calm down. I was like, I'm trying. And they have to take me outside. My parents take me out of the theater and they have to calm me down
Again.
so that I can go back in and watch the end of the movie. And then I watched the end of the movie and it was third time was a charm.
I didn't. I thought that you freaked out again and had to leave the theater again, and it took you a long. Like, it wasn't until later that you actually saw the end of Empire.
Tried to see it 3 times. First time we couldn't get tickets. Second time we had to leave. Third time, we saw it.
So here, I guess, is what I want to know. How did you react to the reveal into Luke's hand?
I didn't care.
You didn't care. It was all about Han Solo.
I thought Luke was a wimp.
And you didn't, and it was, so while everyone else was freaking out about I am your father, which is one of the great now historical things that people refer to as being, didn't matter to you.
Well, I mean, it mattered because it was part of the story, but
you're in your head, you're probably thinking, where's Boba Fett's ship now? He's got Han Solo. Where are they going?
He's thinking this is nothing compared to that time.
I like any. Listen, okay, you want to go to you want to go to the Christian Hosoi Tony Hawk thing?
Yeah.
This is it. When you were a kid, you were a fan of Han Solo or you were a fan of Luke Skywalker?
Oh, I didn't have a problem with that. I liked them both.
Yeah. Yes, you liked them both, but there was more.
You had a preference.
At least in my world, if you were like going to play Star Wars, it's like, I'm Han Solo. And I was always
You're right, the Tony Hawk Christian Hosoi, it's totally, it was either or.
Right. So, for example,
one shoots first and one can use the Force.
Exactly. So, I want you to think about it this way. I thought Luke was a wimp. I was like, yeah, he's the hero of the story, blah, 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 blah. But it's because of Han that he
also whines about power converters.
Right.
Yeah.
Who can take that dude seriously? He's like, Han Solo shot first, which is the stupidest thing they changed that. He's a badass. The princess is in love with him. You know, he's got like a giant ape as his his sidekick.
Bigfoot.
Yeah. And he understands this crazy language.
He's the cool guy in school.
He is a badass. He's wearing dude is walking around in a vest and has got no shame about it. It's just like, I'm wearing a vest. However, when Luke loses his hand, there was a sense of well, that sucks. Sorry, dude. But then I was like, I didn't really care, but I cared about Han Solo. And I will tell you a funny story. I had this friend named Michael Cortez when I was a kid. And after Empire Strikes Back, at the end where they're like, there is another. I, in my mind, is like, yo, it's Han. Obviously. It's the doper older brother. That's who Han is. And my friend Michael Cortez, who is a lawyer now and a writer and a very smart person, even back then was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's Princess Leia. And I was like, what? Princess Leia? That's crazy. There's no way it'd be Princess Leia. It's Han. It's going to be Han. And he, as a little kid, was like, it's too obvious.
Yes.
But I want you to think of this. We were 6 years old, and he's saying it's too obvious. Yeah. This kid is understanding the complexity of storylines at 6, and I'm like, he wears a vest. I'm like, he shot Greedo. He's badass.
How did he navigate that asteroid field?
Yeah.
Without the Force?
Right. And
3PO said what the odds were.
Right. So when Return of the Jedi came out, which by the way I saw in a triple matinee. That's when I saw Return of the Jedi. My poor father, or this was like when I was young. It was like one of the real cherished memories of when I was a kid. Because we've talked a lot about it. It's like it was tough at home.
Yeah.
And so one of the few times where I can look back and be like, that was a great memory. My dad, this Armenian man, took me and my sister to see 7 hours of Star Wars essentially.
Nice.
So, Star Wars.
He sat through it.
Star Wars. Watched it. Loved it. Empire Strikes Back. Loved it. Return of the Jedi comes in.
You're 9 years old. You're watching Empire in the theater again.
Yeah.
How'd you feel when the Han thing happened?
I was fine at this point because...
There wasn't even a little catch, a little muscle memory?
No, because I knew Retribution was coming now. Imminently.
Okay. Yeah.
Return of the Jedi starts. And I am losing my goddamn shit because the first thing they're going to do is take care of Han Solo coming out. They're killing Jabba the Hutt. They're throwing people into pits.
Oh, yeah.
It was...
To be... what's the word I'm looking for here? What does the Sarlacc do?
What do you mean, what does it do?
Remember?
Oh, it digests you slowly over 1,000 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and by the way, yes, that would be terrible, but you're not going to be alive for 1,000 years.
Is that weird?
It doesn't extend your life.
Well, no, we would have. I think it had to.
That's crazy.
Do you think that was just flowery talk?
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's something in the enzymes that actually extends your life, so you suffer.
I was like, Sarlacc, get some better digestive capability. 1,000 years is a long ass time to have a full meal.
Does that mean the last time they fed the Sarlacc was 1,000 years prior?
I guess. Let me just say this though. I started.
There are people who know the answers to these questions.
I probably started during this movie what has become now one of the most irritating habits that I have at movies, which is when I get excited about a movie, I will put my fist up in the air towards the screen as if I'm giving like a fist bump to the people on the screen, and I will stare and nod my head a lot at the screen and lose my mind essentially. And I will do this I was on a flight recently and watched the movie Whiplash.
Haven't seen it yet.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
The woman beside me, as I'm watching this movie, I keep looking out of the corner of my eye and like I was getting irritated. I was like, she keeps acting weird. Like she keeps like pulling away from me and giving me the stink eye. And I was like, what's her deal? Until I realized I was staring at the screen, nodding my head like as if the screen and I were having a conversation. My mouth was hanging open. My chin was like down to my knees. I was like, and I had my fist in the air and was like kind of like shaking it at the screen along to the drum beat and wiggling in my seat like a fish that had been taken out of the water. I was like, yeah. And she was reacting to who is the absolute crazy person that's beside me. And I think I did. It might have been at Return of the Jedi that this first started because I was losing my mind.
So you really dug Return of the Jedi, at least the first third.
Yes, because the Ewoks are lame. You know what the Ewoks are?
And at 9, you weren't cool with the Ewoks.
No, you know what the Ewoks are? They're posers. And I hate posers. I hated the Ewoks.
The Ewoks were trying to cook and eat the people they captured, and they were talked out of it by the golden droid, and then Luke using the Force.
Yeah,
but they were going to kill and eat the heroes of Star Wars. So that gets glossed over because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And at the end, they are playing instruments made of the leftovers of the Imperials that they killed and certainly devoured.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys need to get Bob over here, and he needs to sit in this chair because honestly...
are you feeling now a little left out, honey?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. Yeah.
Well, no, like, listen, I'm just going to say that
So
Ewoks...
that's the thing. Ewoks suck, but the idea was they were these little, like, raccoon bear things that would eat you and kill you.
Yeah, they're terrible.
You guys could go on like this for like 4 or 5
we won't,
hours.
because we're going to need to come to a conclusion.
Let me just finish on this point with this. Return of the Jedi, of course, we all know, was originally named Revenge of the Jedi.
As we all know.
That movie was about revenge, though. Like, it was about owning dudes who had clowned on you and cutting them up and throwing dudes down shafts and, like, just, it was badass.
Yeah.
Now, the Ewoks were unfortunate. And also, you know what bothered me about it was, like, essentially they defeated the Imperial Army with, like, logs and rocks.
Yeah.
Quite ridiculous when you put it that way.
It's like, and how did they cut all that stuff, the trees down, and then hang them to like crush things and like set all these traps? It's like, that takes a while. That would not a bunch of furry midgets. So you don't buy into
the idea that in the face of overwhelming Imperial firepower, one must improvise in ways that the Imperials have not thought of ahead of time in order to defeat. Therefore, in Empire, taking down a walker, we can't do it with our blasters. We have insufficient power that way. However, we can use these tow cables. They haven't thought of this. The Ewoks are almost like an extension of that idea. We can't outshoot them, but they can't handle logs.
This is the thing. Okay. The one that makes sense is when they let all the logs go and it trips up the walker. That makes sense. But the one where like the 2 logs come swinging in and crushes the head of the...
Yeah.
If you have the technology to build this armored walker, but that armor can't handle 2 logs smashing into it at the same time from the equal sides, that technology should not have been... It shouldn't have left the assembly line.
Have they done a Mythbusters?
Listen, all I have to say is...
They should do a Mythbusters on Ewok attacks on the walkers.
I just hate the Ewoks.
Did you hate them back then, though?
Absolutely. Listen, I have hated all of my life. I hate posers. Like, I can't.
Yes, we have already established
But I know,
that,
let me just, the Ewoks were like the first posers. They were like...
They were, because it was a long time ago.
Yeah, in a galaxy far, far away. The
only thing similar was posers in English.
Can I just tell you something? That that although people say that the whole Star Wars story arc was really about Anakin Skywalker, it was actually about identifying the first posers, which were the Ewoks. The first known posers of all time, the cannibalistic Ewoks.
In the way that we saw it, but really the first poser is Jar Jar.
Actually,
because he comes before.
You might say that they were carrying on the tradition set by Jar Jar. They have carried his torch.
Oh my God. All right, so let's get. So okay. I really wanted to hear your Empire story again.
Okay.
And I feel like we needed to know. We needed to know about Jedi.
Yeah.
You and I have disagreed at various times. We've had some controversial opinions.
Yes.
About straight edge.
Yes.
And we talked a lot about straight edge today. So I want to know if we're almost done here.
Okay.
But I want to know if these things still hold true.
Okay.
I have one specific question.
Okay.
Can a straight edge band have a non-straight edge member?
Well, are they a like quote unquote straight edge band and that's what they're about? Or are they a band that has mostly straight edge members and then has a song about straight edge? So let me give you an example. There are some bands that are like, we are a straight edge band. And there are other bands that are like, we play a style of music that is known as like, that's similar, or that's considered to be straight edge hardcore. And we have a song or two about straight edge.
And some of our members.
Yeah, but they wouldn't necessarily identify themselves as like a straight edge band. Which of the two are you saying?
Oh. See, I don't know that when we maybe originally had these conversations, if we had broken it down that far.
I think if you're going to call yourself like, we are a straight edge band, like that's what we are as a band, then no, all your members have to be straight edge. But if you're a band that
was already in that position
mm-hmm.
and you lost a member
mm-hmm.
and you could not replace that member with someone and continue doing what you're doing with someone that was straight edge. However, the person who was coming in to play that person's role was fully supportive of the band's straight edge philosophy while not being straight edge themselves.
You know, let me just say this.
Which sounds like a total philosophical thing, but that actually happens.
I have to say this. Something that I've really been thinking about. I am much less of a black and white thinker as I'm older. At the end of the day, whatever you're going to do, you just do. I mean, I wouldn't be in a straight edge band I wouldn't be in a band that called itself straight edge unless all the members were. And that's just me. And that's not a right or a wrong. Do what you're going to do. Because let me flip it. I'm going to give you something that you will inevitably try and exploit later. React Records, straight edge record label. Definitely not every band on React was straight edge.
Yeah. Above the influence, against the grain.
React Records is a straight edge record label. It is a straight edge record label, but it put out a lot of records that aren't straight edge.
Yeah, that is
But when you first became straight edge, would your answer have been the same? Or
would you hates posers.
You know, it would have been everyone had to be straight edge.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think maybe the first time you guys had this conversation, that was the answer.
Like, for example,
it's progressed and developed and grown.
True Identity. It's a straight edge vegetarian band. In order for that to happen, everyone has to be straight edge and everyone has to be vegetarian. Mm-hmm. Or vegan. That's just my approach to it. There's a lot of great bands that have been straight edge bands where not everyone was straight edge. Who the hell am I to say what's right or wrong? Do whatever you're going to do.
Okay. Second controversial opinion, then we'll be done. Second round straight edge.
I don't care. Whatever you want to do doesn't matter to me. I mean, yo.
Now, just so people understand what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who was straight edge and then stopped being straight edge, sold out, as they say it. Mm-hmm. And then later on in their life at some point, whether it was a year later or a month later or 10 years later, claims straight edge again.
I don't care. I'm going to put this out there, especially because I wanted to work his name into this somehow. If Eric Markley tomorrow was like, yo, Aram, I'm straight edge again, I'd be like, dope, Eric, let's hang out. I'm into it. I'd hang out with him anyways because I love Eric Markley. But like, if Eric Markley tomorrow was like, that's it, Aram, I've gotten rid of these cigars. I'm still going to take a ton of selfies of myself. But I'm straight edge now.
Self edge.
Like, yeah, right.
Okay.
I would be into it. I don't care what people do. Like, I mean, if you're not straight edge, you're not. If you are, you are. I have a very good friend of mine, very, very good friend of mine, who has raised this to me, as apparently I'm the guy that you would ask this of. He was like, do you think it's okay of me to call myself straight edge now, even though I was straight edge for many years, stopped being straight edge, and had some kind of back and forth, and now I consider myself straight edge again? I was like, I don't care, man. It doesn't matter to me. It's straight edge isn't about whether or not I think it or you think it's okay or anyone. It's like, what do you identify as?
But that person wants you to say yes.
Well, I said yes because it was important for them, and it doesn't matter. Like, dude, straight edge is the ultimate selfish thing. It's not about other people. It's ultimately about you. I am not straight edge for anyone else besides me. And if I wasn't straight edge, I would be crazy and do terrible things because I would have problems with alcohol.
So realistically, the right answer to that is no. But if you are that person, you should say, I'm straight edge, it's not for you to say.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it doesn't like, there's no like, well, I mean, according to Ron, there might be a rule book. but like, dude.
I have it.
Yeah.
Wait, there might be a rule book. That's the rule book.
Oh, there you go.
Right
well,
there.
Let there be seen.
Yeah.
Take a photo of this that I'm actually holding the rule book.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think Ron might have interviewed himself in that. Hold on, I gotta get you out there. Nice.
But what do I care, man? What does it matter to me? Like, it does, and you know what? For a 40-year-old man who's been like, no, you can't be straight edge. It's like, I have better things to do in my life than like try and make people feel bad whether or not they're straight edge.
But do you remember when you first found it though? Like, did you feel that way then?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I felt a lot of ways about that.
I know. I'm just trying to. I'm just asking the progression.
Well,
here.
see, that's the thing. Like, yeah, what are you and I gonna do? Sit here and maybe hash out something we might have talked about 15 years ago, where we both had a slightly different opinion on it. But I guess the point is that hearing your opinion, like maybe there's someone out there who isn't 40. Who's maybe half our age, who might hear what you have to say and think, oh, I don't have to be a stick in the mud hard ass about every damn thing.
I'm going to give some people some great life advice right now. Don't be a black and white. Don't be a black and white thinker, because it's going to screw you up. Don't hold people to extreme, don't place extreme attitudes on other people. Like, this person's a good person and this person's a bad person, and like really try and hold people up to these high standards. Essentially, don't act like a turd and it will all be fine. But black and white thinking will screw you up. And at the end of the day, anyone who's straight edge, that's a cool gift. Don't waste it by worrying about what other people are doing. Now, before we end, I know...
I like that. That was a good spot if you wanted to end it there. I thought you were going to go, no posers, at the end.
Well, there are no posers. Before we end, can we identify what are some good and bad records? I'd like to go on the record of saying...
Wait, you want to go on the record about what are good and bad records?
Yes, 100%.
What genre?
I'm
Any
totally
genre?
cool with the good records, but do we want to call out records as bad records? There are people who worked hard on those.
I'm going to identify records that have been called bad by other people that I am going to say are good.
I like that.
Okay, you ready for this?
You got it.
Verbal Assault on. Incredible record.
Don't even. It's one of my favorite records of all time.
People have said that's not a good record. Incredible record.
Hey,
are you ready for this?
Build yourself an anger battery.
Are you ready for this? It's my favorite Verbal Assault record. Yeah. Put that one on.
Trial, man.
Yeah, Trial is a great record. I'm not saying...
I feel like Chappelle going, Thriller.
No. We're identifying records that people have said are bad, but are good. Okay. And I'm also saying that is easily my favorite. I love Trial, but goddamn, On is a great record.
Yeah.
Little known fact, On from Seattle took their name from that record.
Is
that a little known fact?
Well, did you know it, Michaelanne?
If I did, it was only because one of you said that.
One third of the people, 1/3 of people in this conversation didn't know.
Okay.
All right. You ready for it?
Yeah.
You ready for another
absolutely.
One? And this is one that I know you can get into. I already know. New Wind and hold on. New Wind and everything post New Wind is awesome. If you don't like Soul Force Revolution, I'm going to say that you're missing some kind of important thing in your DNA.
Are you kidding me? My problem is I have this weird stumble on Out the Shizzy.
Out the Shizzy is not a good record, but it's
still awesome. Okay, you know what? Yes. I'm just going with what you said. But I feel like what you were trying to say is New Wind, Praise, Ourselves, Soul Force, Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 4 of my favorite records on the face of the earth.
Okay, let me just say
that I love deep in my soul, that matter to me in ways that other things don't. So yeah, I can't argue.
7 Seconds has way more, like infinitely more incredible records than they do records that may be considered questionable. Now, let me just say this. I'm going to say specifically what one record I'm referring to here. A lot of people say they don't like New Wind. New Wind is an amazing record.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we continue this?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
You can't. Did you think I was going to disagree with that? It's my favorite record of all time.
No, can we continue this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm going to get really controversial here.
Oh. You set me up.
And now I'm not saying this to be that guy. Now people are going to, there's almost no way to not be that guy when you say this.
Okay.
Warzone self-titled record. Awesome.
Okay. What am I going to say? Warzone's not good? Come on.
Yeah, but the Warzone self-titled record, that's...
Did people join the Warzone Frontier family?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're still out there.
In the Frontier?
Frontier.
That was like Warzone Boy Scouts,
Yo, but
right?
I'm telling you, the Warzone self-titled LP.
You're talking about the one with the sort of graffiti letters with the bullet holes in them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good record, man.
All right.
Now, people say, understandably, I like when I keep saying people say, like there's this like voice of the street, like I'm walking down the street like, yo, Ram, just so you know, I don't like the Warzone self-titled LP. But I'm just going to say that I get involved in a lot of these conversations. That's a great record.
Okay.
And it's great for a lot of reasons. Some of them just with what extreme measures some of those songs go to, but it's pretty dope. I'm into it. What else? I got a real axe to grind about some records that people don't like, but there's some great ones out there.
So you understood what I was saying. I want to talk about records that people don't like that you do like. I don't want to go the other way.
Yeah. You ready for this?
Oh yeah. Hold on. Set it up.
Dag Nasty Field Day. Great record.
Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like it. Sorry.
Yeah, man. I have periodically over the years gone back to revisit it. And I'm not going to say it's a bad record. Mm-hmm. It's just not for me. And this is from the guy who likes New Wind. I don't see the comparison.
Well, there's not a comparison. It's two totally different records. However, actually New Wind I feel has some New Romantics influence in it.
Oh, that's probably why I love it so
where
much. Field
Field Day has some more like kind of like butt rock influences in it.
That's the problem.
But yo, that song Trouble Is.
You would think I would love it though.
Yeah.
As a,
but there are
girl
songs
of the late
on
80s.
that though.
That song Trouble Is
yeah,
like,
but it's just not that good.
It's so good. But man, like that song about like here on the beach, do 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 do. Like if you're in the right mood, if you're driving your car and you happen to have Dag Nasty Field Day.
I don't though.
No, but I'm just saying if you did, you're driving your car, it's a sunny day. You don't have to work. Things are going good. You throw that song on and you are with Brian Baker on the beach.
You know what? Those guys worked hard on that record and there's a lot of people that love it.
Me being one of them.
And you being one of them. Okay. Do you have others?
Dude, I could go on and on. Do you have any? Do you have any where like people are like, that record sucks? And you're like, no, that record's actually
I have
dope.
spent most of my life talking about New Wind.
Well, okay, but I just said
we
New
don't even
Wind.
get to Ourselves. Like I never even get further down or we don't get to Praise, and Praise is just unreal. It's so good.
Let's take it into the local. Let's take it into the local.
Oh, okay.
Resolution 10 inches dope.
Who says it's not?
Those people may exist.
Resolution 10 inches dope.
It's awesome.
Yep. Galleon's Lap record is...
Yeah, but that's different. The Galleon's Lap record is like, you listen to that record and you're like, oh, this is clearly like an unbelievable record.
But the thing about it is that people don't know about it.
Like, I'll tell you why.
You can still periodically find that record in like a dollar bin, which makes no sense.
I'll tell you why the Resolution 10-inch. Actually, people do not trash that 10-inch, but like of the works of our Gardapi, that is not one that's like as high as, like people wouldn't put that on the same level as Brotherhood.
Yeah.
That record, super creative, interesting, like just a neat record with a strange ensemble of people playing it and really cool, like really heartfelt lyrics. I like that record a lot. I think it's cool.
I do too.
Galleon's Lap is on a whole other level though, man. That record is crazy. It's so good.
And people don't know about it.
No, people don't know about it, but I kind of dig that people don't know about it.
It's one of the last like real great mysteries.
Yeah. That is it. That is a real cool record. Let me end with a Ron story though.
Oh wait, okay. So we're gonna go from records to a Ron story.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. So the day you did your interview with Ron, there was the Cro-Mag show that night.
Oh yeah.
So Keep It Clear played, and I wore a Bootleg Brotherhood t-shirt, and I wore it knowing Ron was going to be there, and I also wore it knowing Ron was going to have an issue with me wearing a Bootleg Brotherhood t-shirt.
Because you like to do that sort of thing.
I like to do that kind of thing for sure, and I like Ron a lot. I think Ron's just a great guy. Like, so he's done so much for all of the scene. So, but I do like to fuck with him for sure around this. So I'm wearing this Brotherhood t-shirt, and I'm psyched that I'm wearing it, and it's a cool shirt. And we finish playing, and I'm hanging out. And Ron walks by, and he goes, "Hey man, how many Bootleg Brotherhood shirts do you have?" And I just said, so many. so many. As many as I can get. And he was like, "Why don't you have like the shirts that we actually have made?" And I was like, "Oh, I have those as well." And he kind of had this flummoxed look on his face. Like, I don't know where to go next. And I was like, "Ron, as long as there's Brotherhood bootleg shirts, they will have a buyer in me, just so you know." And he was like, "That's cool, man. That's cool."
I love your band so much that I'll buy everything legitimate.
Yo, if you're from
everything illegitimate.
Give me more illegitimate. Yo, nobody, if you're from the Northwest or you're part of the scene and you spend time here and you don't love Brotherhood, then it's shocking. It's like being from Earth and saying that you don't like water. Like, it's part of why what we do exists.
Yeah,
is Brotherhood.
Even for me, I'm, like I've said, not a hardcore girl, but being even just on the East Side and in the Seattle scene and young, like, Brotherhood was a huge thing. Like, everybody knew who Brotherhood was.
Yeah, and you keep saying I'm not a hardcore girl.
But I'm not a hardcore girl.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm not. So.
But Brotherhood.
You like old DC hardcore.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course.
All right.
Give me a little Ignition, whatever. Like
Ignition.
Yeah.
Who loves Ignition as much as you?
I fucking love Ignition.
Okay, so
I have the best.
So anyway,
question.
everyone listening thinks
but I'm not a hardcore girl.
They're trying to figure out why you're posing and saying you're not a hardcore girl.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't know.
No, just so you all know.
Do you think I'm a hardcore girl?
Michaelanne was one of the original Warzone women. Okay, I've got a question that we can end on.
All right, good, because we gotta find something.
Yeah, yo, and Ron, don't let all that nice stuff we say go to your head.
No.
All right, this is what we're gonna end on though. Best Discord release.
Oh, that's so tough.
What is the best release that you think ever came out on Discord? We'll each answer.
What are you doing?
How can you? We can't.
Because you know what's good about this though. When it ends, this is the thing that keeps the conversation going afterwards. Because people will be like, "What, that question?"
It's also the one. It'll keep going out in the living room too. We'll continue it out there.
Yeah,
that's hard. I'm not as good at this stuff as you guys are.
Isn't there only one answer?
No, there's so many
there's
answers.
Not.
Really, it's not Minor Threat complete discography.
Nope.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've got what I think it is. Because
I'd have to pull up an entire like discography to know.
You can't confuse, like, you got to be thinking. So first of all, I don't think that's a wrong answer, but we're asking what does each person personally feel, and you got to think, are you going to judge it based on the history of the release
or
and
how
its
much
impact?
you listen to that,
or how much do you listen to it?
Fuck.
So. So this is one where people...
I'd like to point out that non-hardcore girl Michaelanne is completely engaged in this question.
Yeah.
And it probably means as much to her as us. So.
Yeah.
But I really am serious. I would need to have a list to be able to narrow it down. And there's going to be something I'm not even going to remember.
How am I going to compare...
I already know.
The Right
I know
to
my
Spring
answer.
LP and Embrace and Dag Nasty, Can I Say?
Actually, there's three factors. We could actually have like an equation based on this. Are you going to judge it based on its impact as a record, or what you listen to the most, or its personal impact on you?
This includes all Fugazi stuff.
No kidding. That's what I'm saying. How do you do this?
To me, that's why I just went to Minor Threat. I just think that
for me, it
as
has to be
amazing as
Fugazi.
everything is, Minor Threat is just this. It is peerless.
Okay, so Minor Threat for you, for Dave Larson.
God damn it.
It is the Minor Threat discography CD. Is that what you're saying?
Wow.
You're picking
Because
a
it's
CD.
because they released something on Discord that had all of Minor Threat on it.
Right, but come on,
Yeah,
dude. Are
that's
you going to
kinda
pick
cheating.
a CD?
Is that cheating?
It's kind of cheating.
So collections don't count? All right, well, hold on. Let's just say then you would have to choose between the Fugazi 12-inch and Margin Walker. You can't say 10 songs.
All right, fine.
Yo,
Wait, that's a good point.
You're right.
You just made a wicked Cookie Monster sound, and the sweater you're wearing kind of looked like it was a
bright
Cookie
blue.
Monster
It's
sweater.
true.
No, but see, that's my point.
Okay, well then
though.
I have mine then. If that's fair.
If that's fair? Okay.
Okay, so let's go first. Dave, go first.
Oh my god. I can't.
You have to.
Wait, I have to?
This is how we're ending the interview.
I think I could probably think about this question for 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, but you don't have that option. So
Repeater. There, I'll go.
Okay, Michaelanne says
Yeah.
Repeater. Well, that's a good one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm going to do what I do with movies. I can't ever say what I think my favorite movie is and include Star Wars in that list. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, Minor Threat is Star Wars.
Okay.
We're not going to have this conversation.
Okay.
If we're going to do that, I'm going to say Dag Nasty Can I Say.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, yeah.
All right, you guys ready
Yeah.
for mine?
What is yours? I'm very curious.
Embrace.
That's like my second choice.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yo, think of that record, man. Think of the lyrics on that record and the songwriting.
Yeah,
So you went with Repeater.
absolutely.
Which is a totally solid choice.
Because for me, that's when music changes. That's when I don't just listen to like this.
Repeater's like your 7
Yeah.
seconds for me.
Yeah.
But yo, think about this. Repeater. Think of how many copies that record sold.
No.
Like it was a huge
It was
amount.
huge. Yeah.
They were talking about the pre-sales when that thing first came out. It was one of the first times I ever heard the terminology.
But even then, it's nothing. I mean, at the time, it was huge, but it's nothing
Tens
compared
of
to
thousands of copies.
But it's nothing compared to what the major artists were still doing
Oh,
at
yeah,
the
But
time,
think
right?
of this. Like Fugazi, especially that time, redefined what success could
absolutely.
be. Because they were a huge, huge band that didn't sell merch, still played $5 shows,
Yep.
and would play in front of massive, massive crowds all the time.
All the time.
So it's like when you think of Repeater, it's like then if you're thinking what the impact of that record was, it's crazy.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, it literally changed my life for music. Like, it got me out of this weird genre of not really knowing what I liked and liking a bunch of, like, Metallica. I mean, everything, butt rock to hardcore to any of that. But I couldn't figure out what it was that I liked. And it was Fugazi that set me on that path. And even more than, I already knew who Minor Threat was, all of that. And it was good. I liked it. I understood it. But it was Fugazi when I was like, it just spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
And that's how Embrace was to you.
Yeah.
You felt that way the first time you heard it?
No, not the first time I heard it.
You grew into it.
Yeah, I grew into it. The first time I heard it, I was like any kid who grew up listening to punk. You're like, oh, it's cool. It's the guy from Minor Threat, but it's not fast. But when I got older, dude, think about this lyric. You can stay cool behind your window and pick the view you want to see. But as long as others are held captive, do not consider yourself free. Think of the thought that it takes to write something like that and the intensity and the truth, like just the truth behind that statement. I think the best lyrics that have ever appeared on any kind of something in the hardcore related world are on that record. Certainly transformative for me about the way that I thought about my place in the world was that record for sure. Unbelievable. And just everything about it is just so powerful. Super cool.
I can't disagree with the word you said.
All right, so let me end. We'll end on this. I'm about to tell you a story.
The imagery combined with the music of Dag Nasty Can I Say is almost untouchable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what's cool about Ian MacKaye now, though? He's done so much cool shit and done so much stuff that he literally could just do, like, there's a photo of him from Coachella, and he's wearing, like, a maroon bucket hat. Like,
he's the only person that I have ever met, and I've met him a couple of times, that I have ever met and been starstruck by.
Yeah.
I was absolutely awestruck when I met him.
But like, if he was wearing a maroon bucket hat, you would be like,
I would be just as starstruck.
He could be wearing his pants as a hat and his hat as pants. And I would be like, cool. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
You've done some shit.
Yeah.
All right.
20 years from now, all the kids will be doing this.
Absolutely.
And he'll say, I didn't mean to start a movement.
And people will be saying, which are more important to you, the pants or the hat? The hat that now covers the bottom part of your body. We'll have to create different kinds of hats that keep us from revealing things. All right.
So just before, that is the Aram that is the comfortable Aram that I know so well throughout the years. I love it. I love it when you go off on those tangents.
Now let me finish with a story that I will never forget.
Wait, this is the finish?
This is the finish. It has to do with Ian MacKaye.
We're
never really going to finish.
We're not cutting this into 2 episodes. This is just a long.
How long is it?
Well, when I cut stuff out, it's still going to be 2 hours and 40 minutes probably.
Oh my God, I have got to go to bed soon.
let me finish with this story. The first time I ever saw Fugazi, I watched them in a place called McEwen Hall Ballroom in Calgary. And they were touring on, it might have been In on the Killtaker, or it might have been a record before that. I just can't remember. However, my friend Rob Dunlop, who was responsible for a lot of young, like really like a whole generation essentially of really getting turned onto a lot of different kinds of punk, because he was the first person I ever knew who had a great record collection. He had a Minor Threat t-shirt. He was a huge Minor Threat fan. And he went to the Fugazi show wearing a Minor Threat t-shirt and sat on the stage right at Ian MacKaye's feet. And as they were playing, he kept yelling, "Minor Threat! Play Minor Threat!"
That's awful.
Well, we were very young,
yeah,
right?
I know.
And Ian MacKaye stops playing, looks him in the eye and goes, "Hey man, it's not 1980 anymore. Get with the times."
Awesome.
And then just holds his eyes, stares at him, looks him right in the eye. And I remember Rob wilting like a flower that had not had water in 200 years. It was like, and I was looking at that and was like, so badass, man. And then they just launched into another song and I was like, Ian MacKaye just dadded a dude right in front of me. Don't get better than that.
You dadded him?
We dadded him. He dadded him hard.
Yeah, but you would have remembered that show even if that hadn't happened.
Oh, yeah, but what the standout feature of the show was the dadding that Rob Dunlop got at the hands of Ian MacKaye.
Hey, I heard your buddy smoked weed with Ian MacKaye at that show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody's buddy smoked weed with Ian MacKaye. I wonder, like, what point those kinds of rumors will start about, like, people we know, you know? It's like, oh, yeah. Dude, the thing about Jim Hesketh is, like, he literally has a keg of whiskey in the trunk of his car.
A keg of whiskey?
He just drinks it.
Not a barrel, but a keg.
And actually, I drank whiskey with Jim Hesketh out of this whiskey keg in his thing.
Well, you know, it's not quite as yeah, that's the thing. It's a difference when there's a story about a person who says they're straight edge and then the story contradicts that. But like the story about Ron smashing the sign.
Oh, that's great, Stampy.
But
That's right.
I don't know if that story has a name.
Oh.
But
cut it out.
But he definitely verified the story on his episode.
Oh, like, okay. Dude, this is something I was just talking about the other day.
So we're going to do more.
Yeah, like the oral...
This is how it goes every fucking time.
Well, the oral history of hardcore. We're losing the oral history of hardcore, including all these crazy stories. Like, I remember someone... I think Sean O'Leary, who's like, Siv's not straight edge anymore. He got caught by the police selling acid at a show.
I remember hearing that.
Right. And of course we know that Siv has been straight edge this entire time, is a dedicated vegan, you know, has never gone to jail for selling acid. But it's this oral history of hardcore that like is getting lost from all this over documentation. Like, you know, again, there's not a right or wrong, whatever. People are going to like write books, do documentaries, do this or that. There's nothing wrong with it because people are interested in it.
Are you saying the history is being lost by it being put down into a form? That
but the form that it's being captured in, who's to say that's actually what the true story is, right? And who can say someone who's like 45, even them, like say you're 45, can you actually truly accurately tell the story of you when you were 20?
But can you, I mean, is what we've done
I
here
have brought
tonight
this up
even
more-
any of it true?
I have brought this up more than once now, so even though it was only episode 7. Jake Snyder says when you tell us, when you remember something, you're remembering your memory, like of the event. You don't. There comes a point where you stop remembering the actual event and you remember your story of it.
Totally. So, like, I will say, hardcore now is becoming totally over documented. Like, and there's not a right or wrong. So I'm just speaking from a preference point of view. There was something very special about growing up and hearing all these stories, and you don't know if it's true. It's impossible to know if it's true because when I was young, I couldn't just call up like Roger Murray and be like, "Hey, Roger, I want to fact check this story I heard about you." You know, like, so it's like
we didn't have the internet. We couldn't go on there and find out. Yeah.
Totally. It was something very special about like just hearing all these crazy stories from people like, "Yo, I heard this or I heard that." And
it's like, no, that's not how it went down because I was actually there.
Totally.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, for sure, I cannot totally, if someone was to set down the history of Northwest Hardcore in a documentary, I could only tell the story of the times that I have witnessed through the scope of a 40-year-old man and the way that I would look at things now versus what it is. And
well, it's his story, right?
Right. Totally. So even when you're talking about like the Stay Gold Champion rivalry, did I really just tell you the proper thing, or is it just the 40-year-old version of it?
You told me the 40-year-old version.
Yeah, you totally told the 40-year-old version.
We hated each other. Warfare.
No, it's just that you see it through more experienced eyes, and so you can interpret.
Stay gold, more like stay cold.
Oh, it was never like that.
We were called champion for a reason.
Oh, Jesus.
This all gets cut out.
No,
it does not.
Sorry, it peters out. If you've come along the ride this far,
Bless your souls.
I hope you've enjoyed it. We are definitely going to shut her down at this point.
And
Aram,
you're going to have to do this again at some point without me in here.
Oh, there's going to be some repeat customers here. And
yeah.
So, Michaelanne, thank you for staying along with us. I think it added a lot to the proceedings.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really do?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't add a whole lot.
I haven't sat this close to you for this long in a long time.
I know. It was nice to touch shoulders for, 2.5 hours, 3 hours?
It doesn't
Aram,
seem that long. Yeah.
What do you want people to know in parting?
I'm never going to start a record label again.
Right. I totally don't believe you. I so don't believe you.
Wow, that's a whole can of worms, because how many times have you asked me to not let you start a record label in the last couple of years?
All right. What do I really want people to know? Straight Edge is
That you're
awesome.
charming and handsome.
Well, they know that just by being around me. No, Straight Edge is awesome. Do what you got to do. Be who you're going to be. It's all fine. Just live like an authentic person. Don't be a prick. Don't try.
Be a poser.
Well, I was going to end on it. You just blew it. Straight Edge is awesome.
That's called blowing up his spot.
Yeah, you did.
Do they still say that?
I'm not sure what the kids talk about these days.
Well,
but
you can still end it with a bang.
I'm just going to say this. Straight Edge is awesome. Whatever you do, just do it authentically. Don't be a prick. Don't be an ass kisser. Don't try and like fit in with the tastemakers because you think it's going to give you some kind of safety, but it doesn't. Don't worry about the kingmakers. Don't let them try and don't chase their bullshit just so you can be someone in some perceived scene. Just be authentic, be cool. Don't be a prick. And most of all, don't be a fucking poser.
All right. Thanks a lot, brother. That was a long one. Thanks for staying through all the way to the end, people. I think you can tell Aram has been a big part of our lives here for quite a while now, and he's a good friend, and I think that came through. I had a lot of fun with that one. I think probably deep into hour 2, we probably thought, hey, this is going too long. Who would actually care about all this stuff? But you know what? If you're listening to a long podcast, why not? Why not go through it? So I do, however, have kind of a laundry list of corrections on this episode. So let's get into it. Uter from The Simpsons is actually German, not Dutch. We called him the Dutch kid from The Simpsons, but whatever. Honestly, it's a cartoon. It's not even real. So he's not really anything. He's just drawings on paper nowadays in a computer with just a voice actor reading off the script. But, technically German. We talk about Chain of Strength and me giving him a hard time about them not being straight edge or whatever it was. And honestly, okay, one, I said this in the episode, I'm going to say it again. I love Chain of Strength. Those two Chain of Strength 7-inch records are two of the greatest records I've ever heard. They mean a lot to me. They meant a lot to me at the time that they came out. I remember hearing a lot of trash talking on Chain of Strength, and I don't know what's true and what's not. I didn't know them personally. It's not my place to say. I'm fairly certain I did give Aram the hard time that he describes. It's not really a correction. It's just more of an explanation, because it's probably more that I just wanted to give Aram a hard time, because that's kind of how we handled that whole weekend. It was good. So, Chain of Strength, awesome. I'm excited to see him at Rainfest this year. Yeah. Talking about when Jimmy Eat World's Clarity was released, we didn't know when we were recording. I looked it up. It was released in early 1999. So it's basically about right in the middle of when we were talking about. I thought it came out later. They thought it came out earlier. We listened to Jimmy Eat World's Static Prevails, fairly heavy rotation, around the time Aram was showing up. And then we listened to Clarity in pretty heavy rotation after it came out. So I know there were conversations about the band, about both records. Not a correction, because I didn't know the name, but I really should have been able to say that Brian Kraft from Resolution was later in Engine Kid, because that's true, and I knew that at some point in my life before I started getting old and things started seeping out of my head. So there is that. So that's pretty much the end of corrections that I could come up with. There's probably more. Definitely, if you're listening to this just on iTunes or you've just downloaded it, go to the website. Go to nobodiesknows.com, take a look at the blog page for this episode on there. There's so much information that I've linked, and there's pictures that you gotta see. I'm still gonna try to track down, as soon as I get done recording this, I'm going under the house. I'm gonna try to track down that creepy clown doll, see if it's packed away in a box, because that's something that you just, I want that to haunt Aram's dreams again. Other than that, please do rate and review us on iTunes. Give us those 5 stars if you would, because that really helps spread the word. Actually, that just gets it out probably to people who wouldn't otherwise know to find it. And I have to assume that a couple of those people will enjoy hearing old hardcore and punk rock stories from people they don't know. But anything can happen. Who knows? And tell, if you've enjoyed this, tell people about it. I would love it if you were to put a link up on social media or tweet about it, or just tell people that you had a good time listening to it, because I think there's a lot of people that out there still that don't listen to podcasts or don't know how a podcast would fit into their time frame, and don't realize that there's really a lot of ways that they could do it. Some people download and they listen to them when they're driving. Some people can listen to them at work because they have the kind of job that allows them to kind of disconnect part of their brain while they're doing it. That's how I listen to all the podcasts I listen to. All right, so 10 episodes in. That's a pretty good milestone. I'm not going to stop. It might not come out every week, but I'm not going to stop. And I got my eyes on a second podcast that may be coming out through Nobody's Knows to try to make us a true podcast network instead of a fake podcast network with one show. All right. Thank you all. See you next time.
This podcast is a product of the Nobody's Knows Podcast Network. Executive producers David R. Larson and K. Drake Streetman. Music for this episode provided by Polymorph from the record Artifacts, Demos, and Debris.
This